Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1077 of the War News stream. And today we have very large news, and in fact, shocking news, that the U.S. is planning to launch a takeover of the Gaza Strip. Also, Ukraine was granted full permission to strike deep into Russia, and the U.S. is warning that Iran is super close to developing a nuclear weapon. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we've been getting significant news from quite literally every single corner of the world over 48 hours alone. We have been able to hear in major news that the United States is now planning and preparing military operations to take the Gaza Strip and apparently possibly turn it into a U.S. overseas territory. We have also been able to hear at the exact same time that the new Iranian intermediate range ballistic missile capable of striking anywhere in the Middle East appears to be a variation of the Kwasong missile from North Korea, showing that the North Koreans apparently have been providing nuclear technology and missile information to the Islamic Republic of Iran in the meantime. Right now, at this very moment as well, just next door, it appears that the Emirate of Afghanistan is now going through some form of a military coup, as there has been the uproar or the largely sounds of a coup that's been ongoing in Kabul throughout the entirety of the day. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that it appears that the Russian Federation will not be transferring their forces into Libya, as the Spartan 1 and 2, which picked up a large amount of military equipment from the port of Tartus inside of Syria, are not going to Tripoli, but are instead making their way out of the Mediterranean to take the long voyage around Europe and back into the Russian Federation, returning the equipment back to Russia, the mainland itself, and most likely dedicating that small amount of equipment into the Ukrainian war effort. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear from inside the United States that military operations have now begun along the Mexican border areas, as we have been able to see today some U.S. intelligence gathering aircraft and now operating around the Gulf of California, and we've also been able to hear that Mexico has now deployed 10,000 troops to the U.S.-Mexican border to help the United States in fighting the cartels and their heavy presence along the major border cities. We have also been able to hear from inside the U.S. government that a deal has been stricken with the Ukrainians to provide rare earth minerals for the United States to practically give the Ukrainians a blank check And that deal went through. We have been able to hear that the United States government has approved unlimited soup and salad in the terms of missile strikes into the Russian Federation, allowing the Ukrainians to strike wherever they want and however they want with any U.S. weapons that have been provided so far in the conflict. The Russian Federation has been enraged by this action today and considers this to be a serious escalation in the conflict, according to what we're hearing from the inner depths of the Kremlin. We have also been able to get significant information as well from the front lines in Ukraine, as Ukrainian forces have still continued to conduct heavy defensive action, and it appears that the Russian Federation is still taking high losses at this moment and is not really making any heavy leeway in any direction on the front lines. We also have been able to hear very big news as well in some periphery that Panama is going to be attempting to remove C. Hutchison from the major ports of Colón and also Panama City, or the Port of Balboa as it's technically called, as the USS Preble off of the coast of the western United States has been able to test a brand new naval-based laser weapon system for the first time in history for the United States of America, and possibly be rolled out as a basic close-in weapon system for all U.S. vessels here within the near future. We have also been able to see that China has now imposed a tariff of significant proportions on U.S. liquefied natural gas, as well as U.S. coal, which the Chinese rely on somewhat decently. There is loads of news that we have to cover today.
It was kind of a slow news day today, actually, Enforcer. I think we might be going out of business soon.
I think we might be going out of business if the business is not covering news, but this is one of the biggest days of news that we have had. Quite literally, if you look at all of the black dots on the map, it literally spans around the entirety of the world. We have news from every single corner of the globe today. It's absolutely crazy. And also, I'm sure that many of y'all noticed that the intro has gone through significant changes. I was very busy yesterday and today getting that ready, and I have to give a massive shout out. Many people are thinking that I did that. I want to make sure that all of the credit goes to pretty much our in-house channel composer at this point, Marcos Barilari, who not only works for the Lee Spring Army, but he also works for Disney as well. Huge shout out to him for creating those compositions. We're currently in the process of getting those in front of an orchestra. What y'all heard tonight is actually the rough draft of all of those that was created in a digital studio. We're once again, like we did with the Armed Forces Medley, going to be taking all of those rough drafts and then giving them to an orchestra to have properly orchestrated, and then you'll be hearing the final rendition of all of those songs. But we'll get into that a little bit later. We have loads of news to cover tonight, and moving on into probably the most shocking news that we got today. A crazy offer, one that we did not expect. We've actually been blindsided a lot here over the past 2 days, came out of the office of the President of the United States. It was an offer that was too good to refuse, quite literally, but the large deal was that the United States wanted to have access to rare earth metals that are inside of Ukraine. Ukraine does have a large amount of liquefied, well, not really liquefied natural gas, but natural gas reserves, as well as steel and other kinds of rare earths that are below their soil. And the Ukrainians not only are major agricultural outputters, they also are a major outputter of basic rare earth metals. The Ukrainian government immediately accepted the proposition by the United States to allow for a shipment of rare earth metals for U.S. support to continue. And then the most shocking thing happened that we've ever heard. The United States then immediately allowed Ukraine to use American weapons in any and every way that they want, wherever they want in the Russian Federation. Meaning, unlike the last administration where American weapons were allowed to be used during about the past year of the conflict, but there were heavy limitations that were given to them and U.S. approval had to be given on the targets that the Ukrainians wanted to strike. In this particular case, the restrictions are completely lifted. U.S. weapons can be fired anywhere into the Russian Federation within range and hit absolutely anything that the Ukrainians want, and the United States appears that it will not even be having to have that passed by them to give approval at this point. The Ukrainians will be completely autonomous, able to use these weapon systems however they want. This is a
huge, honestly. That's massive. Like before, like you were saying, I think it's been this way for a long time. They were not able to hit those strategic air bases where Russia launches their strategic bombers from. That was off limits thanks to the limitations that were put on them by the previous outgoing people that were in charge of the United States. So now that has been changed, and now Ukraine can strike those crucial air bases, and that will prevent them from taking off these large bombers that hit the Ukrainian cities. So that could be very, very big in the coming days.
It's going to be incredibly big. I want to make that incredibly clear. It's something that is wildly massive in terms of implications, because instead of de-escalating the conflict, this is most likely going to escalate it farther than we've ever seen before, because the United States has never made such a clear and blatant aggressive action against the Russian Federation with our military support that has been provided to Ukraine. This is incredibly good, however, for the Ukrainian armed forces, as this does mean that they are now able to use the most advanced weapon systems that they have at their disposal to strike deep into the Russian Federation at anything within range and destroy whatever strategic infrastructure or assets that they deem necessary to destroy. This is going to be incredibly big as well going on into the future, because the United States has also pledged that they will be supporting Ukraine full on. And when I mean full on, it's going to be as much as the prior presidency or more. So it appears that instead of it going in the direction that many people assumed it would, where the war in Ukraine would largely end because U.S. support would completely cease and Ukraine would fizzle out, it actually appears that Ukraine is going to be going through a renaissance militarily of a sort, and they're going to be able to continue their operations against the Russian Federation with probably some of the best weaponry that the United States can provide that does not compromise national security interests. This is an incredibly bizarre thing. We did not expect it to go in that direction, but it appears that the deal has been stricken. The Russian Federation is not happy about this at all from what we are hearing. We have been able to hear that Putin and a large amount of the Kremlin is pissed. According to the news that we have, Russia has slammed the president's proposal to barter Ukrainian rare earths for military aid, and Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for the Kremlin, objected to the president's proposal, reflecting the classic Russian refrain that if NATO stopped arming Ukraine, the war would end. Once again, we know that the war would not end if U.S. support ended to Ukraine. It would be quite obvious that the Russians would continue the war until total victory. And now it appears that will not be possible, and that most likely will never happen at this point, because the Ukrainians are most likely always going to be able to rely on the United States as their main arms supplier and backer. And not only that, they are able to now flesh out their missile abilities into the Russian Federation in deep strikes farther than we've ever seen so far. Many people have known that the Ukrainians have been able to fire long-range American weaponry, such as the longer-range HIMARS missiles, also ATACMS, into the Russian Federation for quite some time. But there were severe limitations that largely, in no less of better wordage, largely handicapped the Ukrainians in their abilities to use these weapons to their full extent and to be able to make sure that each strike was on the most significant facility. The United States in the past has required Ukraine to actually run by their proposed targets to the United States, which then had to be approved by the Department of Defense and the President of the United States for authorization to then be given for the Ukrainians to fire that weapon at that Russian facility or that Russian target, wherever it may be inside the Russian Federation. And this greatly slowed down Ukrainian response time to moments of, I guess you could say, opportunity, where a Russian commander may be completely exposed or something another, because they would have to get approval from the United States before the strike could be launched, meaning that that could take hours or sometimes days for that kind of approval to be given, and that window of opportunity could disappear. Not only that, but the United States would also heavily limit the amount of targets that could be stricken, opting for a far lower number, and not only that, wanting to ensure that these targets would not escalate the conflict into a larger one that would envelop the West. It now appears that that all of this has been thrown out the window, and the Ukrainians will be able to take advantage of any windows of opportunity that arise, are able to use U.S. missiles practically immediately, pretty much on authorization of the Ukrainian armed forces alone, and not having to send it through the United States. And not only that, they can largely count on, at this point, a mass stream of weaponry, including more ATACMS and HIMARS missiles, being provided to Ukraine, because the United States has reinvigorated, according to the statement made today after the deal was stricken, arms supplies to Ukraine, so that way they can keep the war going. And not only that, for one of the first times ever, the possibility of matching the Russians shot for shot in terms of superior firepower doctrine is now entirely possible. The Ukrainians have largely been outgunned the entirety of the war, and the Russians have been able to leverage a higher amount of artillery shells being fired per day to get a little bit of an advantage over the technologically superior and better trained Ukrainian armed forces. But at this point, with the United States saying that they will be providing massive amounts of support, continued support to Ukraine, and from what we have heard, it's going to be larger than the last administration's allowance votes for support. This means that the Ukrainians may actually be able to match the Russians shot for shot, which might not only balance the playing field, but it may tip it back into Ukraine's favor on the strategic level. Many people have been talking about this. A load of people have been talking about this, especially Putin's response to it today, that he has been insanely enraged from what we've heard about the deal that was stricken in between the United States for Ukraine to give them rare metals, and in exchange, the Americans pretty much let the Ukrainians curb stomp the Russians. It seems as though Putin is incredibly pissed about this, and a lot of people are wondering what will happen as a result of this action today taken by the United States. Some are saying that Putin will get over it soon. That's actually a decent majority. Some others are saying that this will cause the Russians to get angry, or hostile as we call it in a technical term, and others are saying that this will ruin chance at peace talks at all and keep the war going well on into the future. It seems as though the answer is not exactly clear. We actually do not have a unanimous option on this one. But Matthew, tell us what people are thinking about this, and tell us what you're thinking about it as well, because this is, I have to say again, this is something that you and me did not expect to happen today, among several other things.
Yes, it's very interesting to see, and it looks like 38% of the audience said that Putin will get over it soon, while 27% said this will ruin any chances at Russian peace talks, and 27% said this will cause Russia to get hostile, specifically with the United States. And I must admit, one observation I took away from this is I thought Putin's goal by, taking Ukraine was to ward off the NATO threat that he keeps telling his people about. But he's very upset, actually, that the U.S. is actually getting some of those rare earth minerals out of Ukraine. Why is he so upset about that when I thought the goal was to ward off NATO? That's kind of weird. Sounds like Putin was wanting those minerals for himself, which would kind of expose what his real objective was here by taking the land and also basically putting these Ukrainian people in slavery to an extent. So this is not good from any perspective right here, but one thing I will say is this. Ukraine actually proposed to give rare earth minerals to the U.S. in exchange for this military aid. So this was something Ukraine was all on board to do, and they knew it was going to piss Putin off, and I think the U.S. knew it was going to piss him off as well. So it was a risk they were willing to take, and I'm going to say that I think Putin will get hostile with the United States as a result of this. It probably will ruin the chances at talks, but I think, honestly, there was really no real chance of talks anyway. That was just a pipe dream, and it would probably never happen regardless. So we might as well have a fair trade here, and once again, Ukraine's going to get all the military aid they need in exchange for these rare earths, which I think is a fair trade. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to tell y'all a story before I answer this poll. It's a story of something that will seem completely detached, but bear with me, it's all going to make sense when it comes together. This is probably the most famous surveillance aircraft that has ever been produced by the United States in history, the SR-71 Blackbird. The SR-71 Blackbird is a high-speed, high-altitude surveillance aircraft that was used back in the day to take high-fidelity photos of the Soviet Union and also other countries that the United States was adversaries with. There was one problem, though, with producing SR-71s. These aircrafts and their fuselage are entirely made of titanium, and the big problem with that is that the United States doesn't really have an access to titanium that's incredibly large. The United States is largely deficient in large titanium deposits, which makes producing these aircraft out of American stores of titanium incredibly expensive. However, a country that had a massive amount of titanium when we produced the SR-71 was the Soviet Union. And so what we did is that we created a whole bunch of shell companies in neutrally aligned countries in the Middle East and Africa that would purchase large amounts of titanium, and we would quietly ship it back to the United States to produce the SR-71. Now, something that no one ever told y'all about the story of the SR-71 is that most of the titanium in the Soviet Union actually came from Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the largest producers in the Soviet Union and in the modern day of titanium around the world. It's one of the few places that has rich deposits of titanium. And not only that, another thing that's becoming incredibly important in the modern industrial world, which is lithium, which is used to make a large amount of different kinds of batteries throughout the United States on an industrial scale. So for this reason, Ukraine is incredibly important for its rare earth minerals to the United States, because not only is the United States planning on using titanium in future projects for different kinds of aircraft and systems, but we're also planning on using a massive amount of lithium, and this requires us to be able to have access to these kinds of rare earth deposits. So with this in mind, it's fairly obvious at this point that the United States has some strategic interest in securing rare earth deposits like these, and it appears that the Ukrainians were all on board with giving these rare earths so that way they can have the best chance of beating the Russian military on the battlefield strategically. So with this in mind, I believe that we're going to see that Putin is going to be enraged over this, because not only does this put Ukraine on a much better footing on the battlefield and practically ensure that probably within the next 2 months we're going to see a slow of any kind of Russian advances to a crawl, because they will be able to leverage superior firepower for once to actually stop Russian advances like they used to back at the beginning of the war. And not only that, the United States is going to be able to get a massive leap ahead, because we're now going to have access to cheap lithium and cheap titanium, which is something that most countries are heavily seeking at the moment. This is going to be giving us a strategic advantage here in the United States, and not only that, it's going to be giving the Ukrainians a battlefield advantage in the war against the Russian Federation. I have a feeling that peace talks are probably going to completely fall apart over this, because the Russian Federation is most likely going to be seeing that their militaries are being defeated on the battlefield, and instead of the United States and the change of leadership benefiting the Russian Federation, it's actually, shockingly enough, hurting them even further. So we will probably see that the Russian Federation will dig in and try and hold out for another year until the economy really starts to show signs of failing, or about 2 years out when we believe the economy will most likely have completely collapsed inside the Russian Federation.
Also, by the way, to answer the question, I see a ton of people asking. They're saying exactly what does Ukraine have outside of the lithium and also the other material that you mentioned as well just a moment ago. So just to give some more detail here, it looks like Ukraine has about $38 billion in lithium deposits within their country, and of course, and the enforcer mentioned those massive titanium reserves. Of course, that's a huge deal as well. They have 19 million tons of graphite. They have tons of iron ore. And another big one is they have a lot of uranium as well, along with other materials used in making electronics. So very interesting. They have actually a lot of very valuable minerals, and it looks like they're sitting on a gold mine, basically. So that could be a way for them to basically indefinitely fund the war effort, because it looks like the U.S. is more than willing to give over weaponry in exchange for these materials out of Ukraine, and Zelensky is more than happy to do it as well. So this may be the key right here to satisfy the United States and also to satisfy Europe to make sure they are still funding the war effort no matter what happens, because when there's two people equally benefiting, that keeps them involved in it. So that's very promising to see.
I would have to say this is going to be an incredibly good thing going forward, especially for the United States. But when you really look at it, what is crazy is that Ukraine is practically, Matthew, the land of plenty. It's a perfectly flat country for the large part. There's only mountains in the southwestern region, which means that transportation is incredibly cheap and efficient by rail or road, because you're not having to deal with increased costs of fuel or increased amounts of tractive effort being needed to pull cargo across it. It has a boundless amount of natural resources, such as lithium and other kinds of rare metals like that. Not only that, it is largely a breadbasket as well because of its flat topography and rich soil. They're able to grow an unlimited amount of food to the point that they're able to export most of it. Ukraine actually has a very positive and really beneficial kind of an economic outlook, not only for themselves in the future, but also for the Western world if they were able to get into the Western sphere just on the resource side of things. Not only that, strategically, it once again puts us in a good spot against the Russian Federation if Ukraine gets in NATO, because we have a second attack path to Moscow and also an attack path for the first time ever directly towards Volgograd, completely cutting off the Volga River in the middle of any kind of a conventional war that would break out with the Russian Federation. So with all this
honestly, man, just from a financial standpoint, if we're looking at it just from solely that aspect, which would honestly be kind of narrow-minded to look at it kind of like from just that view, because Ukraine is of a significant value for many different reasons, and honestly, mainly the big reason is it's a buffer between Russia and NATO countries. Obviously, if NATO lets Ukraine into the membership, that would put Ukraine literally around the border with Russia, but right now it is a border and a buffer between the two places, so it's very strategic, has a ton of minerals, has a ton of financial ability. They're building a massive defense industry, and also, once again, it's really good for farming. It's the breadbasket of Europe, basically. So Ukraine, super valuable. That's why I don't understand the people out there. They're like, oh, who cares about Ukraine? Just let it go. It's like, if we're looking, like, for example, at Greenland for, like, mineral deposits, Ukraine is way more valuable, like, based on what they have underground. And that's why we can't just dismiss it, just from a financial aspect as well.
I would have to say this is going to be a great thing going forward. I got to say, one thing I will say on this one, this actually seems to be a great deal for everyone involved. I mean, this is actually the best deal I've ever seen Ukraine get. They give us rare metals, massive benefit to the United States. We give them in exchange enough firepower to completely close the gap in between the Ukrainian armed forces and the Russians. That is a great deal for everyone all around. I got to say that this was I mean, honestly, this is one of the most generous deals I've ever seen anyone been given, entirely honest. And it looks like it's going to be incredibly good for everyone going forward. It's going to be a mutual win-win. Not only that, With the Ukrainians giving us access to rare earths inside of Ukraine, this will ensure heavy American investment inside of Ukraine, which means that Ukrainians will be seeing job opportunities that have never existed before, which also means that the gross GDP of Ukraine post-war will start to rise rapidly just in rare earths productions alone. This also means that the Ukrainian government will have more money to invest inside of their economy, to increase infrastructure, to attract more businesses, which means that the Ukrainian economy, much like any other that's been in the Western world for a while, will start to grow incredibly rapidly and will start to become a completely westernized country because of the economic precedent set out by this deal. If this stays and this exists during the war and well after the war, this is not only going to be a great thing for the United States, it's going to be a great thing for Ukraine as well. So a pretty impressive thing that happened today. And not only that, it pissed off the Russians, which was a buy one, get one free kind of a deal right there. Because not only was it a win-win for the United States and Ukraine, it was also a win-win for everyone because we pissed off the Russians just a little extra. So with that, it's now time for us to move on to the next shocking story of the day, which actually takes us down into the Middle East. We actually have a lot to talk about in the Middle East, like several big things today. There's one that happened around the Gaza Strip, one in the Mediterranean, one in Syria, and then also several in Iran. So I'm going to be trying to get you all to all of these in terms of precedence and importance. So we're going to be moving into Iran first. Although I got to be honest with y'all, it's a bit of a toss-up about this one and what's going on with Gaza. So
it's a huge toss-up, really, man. They're both massive, actually.
yeah, I mean, goodness, it's a tough one. But we're going to tell y'all everything that's been said and everything that's happening today. So in the Islamic Republic of Iran, many of y'all will know that the Iranians have apparently developed a new kind of an intermediate range missile that could largely hit anything within the Middle East. This is the range of the Shahrud, which shows that the Iranians have a missile that is capable from the Shahrud missile site. This isn't the name of the missile, sorry, that's the name of the missile site, to strike not only East Africa, but also some areas of, I guess you could say the Balkans, most of Russia, pretty much all of the Stan Series countries, even Western China and India and Pakistan as well. This largely gives, and also, of course, Israel, which is Iran's #1 target. This gives the Iranians a pretty massive leap forward, especially if they create a nuclear-capable weapon, because this means they now have an intermediate range ballistic missile of targeting practically anyone that they would see as a threat within the region. One thing that is shocking about this is that many have started to say, and it appears that intelligence has actually come out to confirm this to be true, that according to the information provided, the missile is developed jointly with North Korea at 2 facilities in different parts of Iran that are disguised as space satellite launch centers. The first facility develops warheads, the second launchers. Both centers are classified and under heavy guard by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and it appears that the North Koreans have been directly involved in providing arms support and nuclear technology, missile technology, and MIRV technology to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Sorry, folks, if I'm sounding a little distracted. I just got really lightheaded right there, like, immediately, and so, like, I was trying to just power my way through that. But nevertheless, it does appear that the Iranians are getting closer and closer to developing some kind of a nuclear weapon. And not only that, we have also been able to hear, in additional news as well, that the United States will be taking offensive action against Iran with sanctions. It doesn't appear that we're going to be taking any armed action directly yet. It appears that the United States is planning to launch an operation to prevent Iran from finishing the development of a nuclear weapon by bringing their net exports of oil products down to zero. This comes after
honestly, you know what this sounds like? It sounds like the U.S. is basically taking the same strategy that we're putting on Russia, because we're doing the same thing to them right now as well. We're putting maximum sanctions on them. We're hoping their economy collapses, and we're hoping that brings Russia to its knees and it stops the war. That's the hope. It sounds like they're trying to transfer that strategy that's being applied to Russia right over here to Iran and hoping that works as well. So we'll have to see if it works on which one first. Honestly, I think Russia might be the first to go with that plan, but considering that Iran's this close to actually developing a final version of a nuclear missile, and now they're getting help from North Korea as well, which speeds things up dramatically, I think that's very concerning, actually. And based on the sounds of what we're hearing from the government, it sounds like they are literally possibly weeks away. I know we've said that before, but it sounds like they're pretty close.
It sounds like they're getting incredibly close, and the United States appears to be trying to move through economic means, at least at this moment, to deal with the Iranian development of an intermediate range ballistic missile and possible nuclear weapons in the future. It's something that is bit concerning to hear that they're getting incredibly close, apparently. I would actually say that I'm still in the camp that if this appears that they're getting very close to creating a nuclear weapon, the United States and Israel should jointly conduct strikes to completely level and destroy their nuclear weapons and development facilities. And if it appears that that isn't really achieving what we're looking for, then we should move directly on into direct ground intervention to try and make sure that these weapons of mass destruction are not created that could greatly destabilize the Middle East permanently from what we would know. A lot of people have been saying loads of things about the United States, stating that Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon, and Operation Stop Iran, very simply named, will begin soon. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts on this. And a lot of people are saying that the Iranians will not back down from this, and considering that they are just on the cusp of producing a weapon of mass destruction, they're most likely going to see it through to the finish and end up creating this nuclear weapon that finally will ensure that Iran is practically untouchable for anyone in the region. Others are saying that it really depends on American resolve. And if the United States appears to be very strong, or at least incredibly hostile towards Iran, they probably will back off and not really develop a nuclear weapon, or at least they'll try and hope that by the benevolence of the United States, they will survive. Others are saying that the Iranians will back off and abandon it. That seems to be a smaller amount of people. And some others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like 68% of the audience said Iran will not back down from their nuclear weapons development program, while 18% said it depends on the U.S. resolve, and only 9% said Iran will back off and abandon their hopes of developing a nuclear weapon. And I would say, once again, like I just said, since North Korea is now involved in this venture, they are all in. Iran will not be backing down from this. They've probably come to some behind closed doors agreement with North Korea in order to exchange the nuclear technology between those two countries. I was actually telling the enforcer that in my speculation, I think North Korea might be being used as a proxy force, basically, for Russia to supply Iran with nuclear technology. That probably might be the case. I know North Korea has their own nukes they could lend, per se, like the technology at least, to the Iranians, but I think more like the Russians probably had the raw equipment and materials that they need to develop the nuclear weapons. So I would say Iran is not backing down. I'm with the 69%, also nice. I'm with the 69% that said that Iran will not back down. They're going all in, and U.S. resolve is very strong going into these coming months, and I think Iran's going to pay dearly for that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I do believe that the Iranians are probably not going to be backing down from this, and I think it's going to take something a lot more serious. For example, bombing Iranian nuclear weapons and development sites to be able to actually stop them from developing a nuclear weapon. We cannot really sit by. I actually would say on this one, I find this to be a little bit too lax. We really cannot sit by when we hear that someone is nearly to making a usable nuclear weapon. The amount of error, well, the margin of error that we have there is so thin. If we are wrong, they are going to create a dangerous weapon that not only could target countries within the region, but with enough research into missile technology, they could start to directly threaten the United States as well. And it's an incredibly unstable regime that would have access to those kinds of weapons. So with this in mind, I would have to say that entirely as just a matter of principle, we should take every and any action necessary to deal with the Iranian threat and to ensure that they never have a usable nuclear weapon. I think that this is not going to deter the Iranians, and this should move us to the next step of escalation, which is where we start to conduct direct armed action to deal with the Iranian nuclear threat. I don't really know who in the world could come to Iran's defense saying, how dare the United States and Israel, possibly, I really think that this should just be a U.S. action only, deal with the Iranians developing a nuclear weapon, because anyone who could come forward and say that could back the Iranians is currently a signer of the International Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which all signers agree that no other countries in the world, rather than the signing members, should have access to nuclear weapons. So who in the world could come to the defense of this country without looking like a lunatic? That's really my question, and I don't really think anyone would even come to their defense, because I believe that the Chinese and the Russians may generally view that the Iranians getting some form of nuclear weaponry, using nuclear technology for weaponized means, might also be dangerous for them as well. After all, it's not really like the Iranians have the best relations with China. I mean, they're not bad, but they're also not great either. So I'm sure the People's Republic of China wouldn't be a big fan of them getting access to those kinds of weapon systems. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking a decent deal about something else that's been going on today, and this one actually was huge. In this one, I was kind of a little bit tied on whether we should cover this one first or whether we should cover it second. So we're going to cover it second. So we're going to move on from Iran, and we're now going to be moving on into something that just blew our minds today. I really don't know what to make of it, so we're just going to report it to y'all straight, and I'm not even going to get into weighing in my opinion on this. I'm just going to tell you what's going on. The President of the United States today has stated that the United States has plans to take over the Gaza Strip, relocate the millions of people living in there to Jordan and Syria, and also develop it possibly as a U.S. overseas territory directly alongside the border of Israel. This information just came out a few hours ago, right before we were about to go live. And we were also able to hear some additional details that doesn't really seem, at least according to a poll that we put out on Twitter, that this is a fairly straightforward or clear kind of an action. Some people support it, some people do not. Others, a lot of people actually, were unsure, and some people partially disagree. But for the large part, this is something that is interesting, to say the least.
Massive. Jeez, man. Honestly, I'll tell you all this. When I heard this come out today, I honestly thought it was a joke. I was like, wait a minute. Like, somebody's pulling a prank. It's not even April 1st, and they're pulling a prank already. I went and looked at all my sources. I'm like, no way. That was actually a serious announcement. I'm not weighing in on it either way or another. I honestly need to do more research on it first. This was blindsiding. I was not expecting this in a million years. This would be announced today to take the Gaza Strip by the U.S. Just honestly baffling. I'm not really sure what to think about it.
I see a lot of people saying, I'm curious. I'm curious as well, because Matthew and me were both blindsided with this. Matthew ran into the room while I was working on the new intro tonight, and he said, Andrew, you're not going to believe this. The United States just said they're going to take Gaza and relocate everyone. I said, you're joking. He said, no. I said, you're kidding, man. You're pulling my leg. And he was like, no, I'm not. So then I went and looked, and yeah, that actually was a statement made today. I'm going to be honest with y'all. This channel is a pro-American channel in support of American and Western interests, but on this one, I'm not making a comment. But we're actually going to ask y'all about it instead to see what y'all are going to be thinking about this, because let me just guide y'all through the current plan right now. So the current plan is that the United States, along with Israeli support, but it's generally going to be a U.S.-led initiative, is going to militarily occupy the Gaza Strip. Then the United States is going to go through the painstaking process of moving around 2.5 million people from the Gaza Strip and relocating them into the Kingdom of Jordan and the Syrian interim government. Then, after that is accomplished, the United States appears that it has a plan to create an overseas territory out of the Gaza Strip and then develop it. It's an interesting plan. It's one of... It's just interesting, and we've already heard that the Kingdom of Jordan and the Syrian interim government have both clearly refused that any residents of the Gaza Strip would be allowed into their country. They're already being outright denied even before anything's about to happen. But it seems as though a lot of people are weighing in on what this will produce in the Middle East, because I'm not going to make a comment on this, whether I agree or disagree with this. I'm just going to leave this to y'all's imagination. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking about this and what kind of an end result this is going to create for the Middle East. And a lot of people are saying that this is going to cause unmitigated, absolute, total chaos. Others are saying that this will go well and lead to peace. Some others are saying that it's just a bluff and there's no worries, and others are saying that they're unsure and undecided. Matthew, considering that this is the first time in history that I've ever heard the idea floated that Gaza will possibly become a U.S. overseas territory, and also several million people will be deported from the Strip to other countries, what are you thinking about this? Well, actually, not what you were thinking about this. What is everyone else thinking about this? And we're just going to leave it at that. So, what are people thinking about it?
So on this one, it looks like 56% of the audience said that will cause total chaos in the Middle East, while 19% said that will go well and lead to peace, and 14% said it's just a bluff and no worries. And on this one, like we said before, we're not really going to weigh in just yet on it. It's kind of blindsiding, like we said here, a little bit unexpected, to say the least. But I will say this. I suspect that how unstable and destabilized the Middle East is, that any small little movement usually causes complete chaos. And this is a monumental movement. So to pull something like this off, to relocate that many people, that's a humongous challenge in itself that may or may not be able to even be possible. Then number two, you have to rid the place of the terrorist threat. Then number three, you have to actually start developing the place, and then the U.S. controls it and basically occupies the place long term. The logistics of that are insane. I don't really understand how that's even possible to pull that off, but surely the U.S. probably could pull it off if they chose to, but to see that in action, I would have to see that to believe it. So I'm actually with the 56%. I believe it'll cause total chaos. I think a lot of countries will object to it. And once again, there's nowhere to even put the Gazan people. Nobody's willing to accept them. They've already made that perfectly clear. So it's just very interesting. Apparently, it's going to become the Riviera of the Middle East. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say I generally would have to be with the 56% that this will most likely cause chaos. Now, I'm not going to speak about this on a political level, and I'm not going to make any positive or disparaging comments about anyone in the political sphere, including the president, because we don't do that. That would be a domestic political violation to our rule that we have here on the channel. But I will explain what this most likely would turn into. And this is generally what I would see. The United States would get involved in the Strip. It would be an insanely long-term commitment. I mean, this would go well beyond probably 10 years at least, because it's not going to be a one-and-done kind of a deal to move 2.5 million people from the Strip and forcefully relocate them somewhere else. No one even wants them. Like, that's the thing. The Kingdom of Jordan doesn't want the folks from the Gaza Strip. Neither does the Syrian interim government, and they're the only ones that were floated as the possible caretakers of the people that are going to be forcefully relocated from the Strip. That in itself would be incredibly expensive to do, to move 2.5 million people from the Strip elsewhere. That would be an exorbitant cost that is undertaken, even if it was done as cheaply as possible. And if it's done as cheaply as possible, then that would cause a massive humanitarian concern, and that would not really look good for the United States. Another thing is that nobody wants them, because the truth of the matter is that if you take the folks in Gaza and you move them somewhere else, you're just moving Hamas's area of operation from the Gaza Strip, where it's fairly localized, and now you're spreading it throughout the Kingdom of Jordan and the Syrian interim government, which could start to pose massive issues, because that's generally what happened to Lebanon, is that during the Israeli War of Independence in 1948, the Israelis actually took an area that was once Palestine's, which is this area right here around Carmel. I believe this is called the Upper Galilee area, and they forcefully relocated about the million or two Palestinians, almost a similar number, from this area and into southern Lebanon. And then those folks were pissed off and angry that that happened to them, and later on, they eventually evolved into Hezbollah with some Iranian support. And to this day, this is a massive issue. So I generally would say all we would be doing is moving the issue from being the Israelis and Hamas inside of Gaza to now Israel would be having direct issues with the Kingdom of Jordan and the Syrian interim government, because there would be active proxy forces of Iran operating within those countries. And not only that, they largely conduct acts of terrorism against the groups they're in. So these groups like Hamas could end up hijacking the Kingdom of Jordan's government, or for that matter, the Syrian interim government, and start turning it into some form of a radical Islamic faction, a lot like the Lebanese government is currently, and that could continue to spurn even further issues for far longer in the Middle East than even would pale in existence what's going on in the Gaza Strip right now. So I generally would say that this is not a great idea, at least for stability within the region, because
Well, also get this, Enforcer, as well. Let's say we take the idea here, and once again, I'm not saying I support it or not, but the idea is the U.S. takes control of the Gaza Strip, relocates the Gazans, and then develops the place like it's a top-tier, top-notch coastal resort nation, basically, or something like that. So let's say you go there to invest in real estate, and you buy a $300,000 condo right next to the beach, in Gaza, that is. I'm sure that since that's controlled by the United States, that's going to be a massive target for terrorism, since the terrorists are literally on the perimeter and outside the border of Gaza. You're going to have massive security to try to keep everybody safe inside of Gaza. That's going to be basically requiring a permanent stationing of U.S. troops or something like that, or private security to keep the place safe. And once again, there's a huge network of tunnels under there. I'm not even really sure how you would take it, to be honest with you, because that place is literally crawling, and you can't even tell where the terrorists are at. They're hiding underground in tunnels. So that job alone would be massive. It's just really complicated all the way around. I just don't see the full strategy behind it. Maybe I'm missing the bigger picture here or something, but I'm just not seeing the larger strategy.
I personally got to say, on this one, I just don't see it. Like, also on top of that, I don't really see the Gaza Strip being a U.S. territory. It's not territory material. Like, there are certain kinds of things that you have to check off to have an overseas territory for the United States. Usually there has to be some sort of military strategic significance for us to have an overseas territory. Like, for example, Guam, which is still a U.S. overseas territory. We'll go to Guam right here. The reason why the United States has Guam is because it's militarily strategic. It's a very nice little piece of real estate in the middle of the Pacific. It allows the U.S. Navy to project from Guam, and also the Air Force as well. It has a decent amount of strategic significance. Gaza has none, because we already have forces, and we can really put as many as we want into Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's like the bag, the bottomless bag there. You can put anything in Saudi Arabia; they'll be fine with it. So I don't really know what the point is of having the Gaza Strip beyond developing it for real estate, and then that doesn't really seem to fall within any kind of larger U.S. strategic interest. So I just have to be honest. I mean, I'm just not really seeing it there. Like I'm not of course saying that. I'm not trying to say anything that's anti-American here. I want to make that a little bit clear. But as far as U.S. and Western interests go, I'm just not seeing it. Like I just got to be honest. Maybe there's some sort of because I'll say this. There has been some things that have happened in the background we can't really get into that appear to be some sort of crazy like hurdles or gymnastics that we did to get to some sort of an end result. Maybe this is a similar thing. But this would be a wild way to go through some gymnastics or hurdles to get to some sort of an end result, which is completely different from this. So I'll be entirely honest with y'all. I don't know what's going on with this. I do want to make this clear. We're not getting political here with this. We're talking about as far as foreign policy and American strategic interest. Where does this fall? I don't really know.
Also, one last thing as well. I believe the ceasefire deal is still in effect, to my knowledge, between the Hamas and Israel. I believe it's still in effect, and also there's still a hostage deal in effect as well that's still ongoing. And honestly, it seems like this might put the remaining hostages at risk. Because if we're saying that we're going to go in and take Gaza, surely the terrorists are not going to be like, let's keep cooperating with the Israelis in the United States. They're going to become really, really hostile really quick, and that puts the whole deal in jeopardy. So I'm not really sure how they're sort of like dealing with that. Maybe they saw that they were about to back out of the hostage deal, the terrorists. I'm not really sure though, but it seems like it might put them at risk.
Yeah, I would generally have to say, on some other things that we've heard recently, I mean, there seems to be some sense to it, but this one, I'm not seeing it. Like, I just got to be honest with you all, I'm not really seeing this one. Of course, we'll keep y'all apprised of the story, like we always do on everything, and if there is something beneficial that comes out of this, we'll let all of y'all know. But for now, I don't know what's going to happen with this one. So take it for what you will. It sure has been, it sure has incited a great deal of conversation in the chat, because the live chat's been going at several hundred chats a minute the whole entire time we've been talking about this. But once again, I want to make this clear. I want to make sure to give this as a disclaimer. We're not getting into domestic politics here, and we're also not going to make any positive or negative comments, either praising or disparaging the current president of the United States. This is what they said. As far as it goes as a strategy or some sort of a plan, at least from what we're hearing at face value today, I'm not seeing it. That's not getting into the domestic political world, however. I want to make that very clear. But I don't know what this is. So we'll leave it at that. And we're going to move on and out of that and into some other news. Because we were able to hear that today, the Syrian interim government has given the Russians, well, actually this was yesterday, a deal. It's an interesting deal. And it's one that I don't believe the Russians will follow through on. The Syrian interim government has stated that if they return Assad, they will allow the Russians to keep Tartus.
Oh, they want Assad back bad, apparently, because that's a doozy. Honestly, that sounds like a trade that Russia would be very wise to take, actually, because the port of Tartus was way, way more valuable than keeping Assad in their country. Because Assad is doing nothing but simply loafing around. He's doing nothing. I think he went back to being an eye doctor or something like that. So I don't know why Russia wouldn't jump at that, to be honest.
Russia isn't going to jump at this, I think. And this actually would be a good one to start running a question on, Matthew. A good question to everyone about this, because this is something I don't think they're going to accept. Because everyone would say, that's a great deal. I mean, Assad's just loafing around in Moscow right now. He's not really doing anything. The Russians don't have any use for him anymore. But they have a lot of use for Tartus. Give him back. They probably aren't, though. And hear me out, Matthew. I think this is the theory that I got. Yes, it would be great for them to have Tartus. But if they throw Assad to the wolves, what kind of a message does that give to Khamenei in Iran, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, or anyone else for that matter, like Lukashenko, who are in these countries that are a part of the Russian ilk, it shows them they have no future with Russia. Because if they continue to stay with Russia, if their countries were to fall following Russia's interests, they'll throw them to the wolves anyways, as a person. So who in the world would be incentivized to remain within the Russian sphere, considering that loyalty would mean nothing to the Russians at that point, based off the example they would make out of Assad? So I think that they might not actually accept this deal, because they know that the house of cards that they have with their remaining allies, which are very few and far between, it's going to completely collapse if they gave Assad back, because every single one of these other dictators are going to know, if our countries fall apart because we're doing what Daddy Russia wants, they're not going to be there for us when we have to flee our own country and then go hide in Moscow. So I think that in this instance, they're not going to give back Assad, and Tartus Port will simply be refused any kind of Russian safe harbor, I think.
I mean, that's a really good point, by the way. Me personally, though, while I do see a lot of merit to that point, another flip side to it is I believe all of Russia's allies pretty much know that it's a push and pull type of relationship. There is no real loyalty, at least in my view. There's not. For example, if Lukashenko does something to cause himself to lose power or also get ousted or something like that, I personally don't think Russia would be there to help him unless Russia has something to gain. That's just the way they work. It's very cold and very brutal, and there's no friendship or actual real loyalty there. It's just if Lukashenko has something that Russia can benefit from, then they'll give him assistance or they'll help him out if he gets in a bad spot. But if that suddenly changes, I think Russia pretty much throws him to the wolves anyway. That's sort of a rule by fear tactic, and I think that's the way they probably operate. But there's no telling. It's 50-50. It could go your way or it could go my way. There's no telling.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We actually, I'm not saying that. Well, I'm not even going to say that because I don't know how YouTube's going to take that. But I'm going to say, Matthew, I'm going to stick with my guns here, and we're going to revisit this probably in a week or two. We're going to see what the Russians did. Either they're going to give back Assad or they're not. And I'm thinking that they're not going to give back Assad, because it's just going to send a bad message to Russia's few remaining allies that there's nothing left for them if they do what Russia wants. And, there's really nothing left for them anyway, so why stay? You might as well hop off the boat while it's sinking. I'm thinking that that's going to be the case. And also, I think that you're probably going to stick to your guns that he is going to give Assad back, so that way he can get back Tartus Port and ensure Russian strategic interests, regardless to consequences. But Matthew, what are folks thinking about this right now? Because it actually looks like, from what I'm seeing, it's a fair split. I mean, this is about one of the closer polls I've seen in recent times. It isn't just like purely unanimous in one way or another. So what are folks thinking about this?
All right. So is Russia going to throw Assad to the wolves, basically? That's the big question. It looks like 60% said no and 40% said yes. So the majority of you are with the enforcer. You all pretty much believe that Russia will not give Assad back because they don't want to send a bad message to their allies. And they want to ensure everybody that they will prove loyalty in the event of something going sideways. So interesting. Very interesting. Honestly, like I said, I see it both ways. It could be 50-50. Honestly, I would say that even considering my position, ultimately, if they do return Assad, I would be mildly shocked, but not completely shocked. But to actually see Assad be basically handed over for execution, which is basically what would happen to him, he'd be executed in Syria by the new government, would be my guess. I'm surely they wouldn't let him just live in prison or something like that. I wouldn't imagine. But honestly, I can see it both ways. It's kind of interesting. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm thinking, I saw this in the chat. We can't repeat this, but I think a lot of people got a point. I think, Matthew, if they tried to send back Assad would not even go back alive. Because he knows that at that point, he's being handed over to the interim government to be executed. So you'd probably be thinking it's better by my hands than theirs. That's probably what his end result would be. I don't know if that would get the Russians' Tartus port back. I'm not really sure on that one. But I think that might actually be the case, because, man, Assad would not want to go back to Syria. He knows what is waiting for him down there. Didn't you see what happened, Matthew, recently to that one guy that they found in Homs, who was the commander of one of the more elite Syrian army brigades?
Was that the guy that got street side executed?
Yeah, he just got gunned down. They found him and they just gunned him down on the spot. Something worse is going to happen to him if he returns, because he's the number one guy. He's practically Syria's he isn't practically, he literally is Syria's version of Hitler. So if he returns, they are going to get him. They are going to make sure that he's got a long way to go before he makes it all the way out, if y'all are getting what I'm saying here. So I'm thinking, much like Hitler did, Assad's going to think that his way is going to be a lot better than the interim government's way, if y'all are getting what I'm saying here, in more or less less descript wordage. But beyond that, however, I do have to say that we have hardly even scratched the surface of the news. Like, this is crazy. So I'm going to speed
It's
it
so
up.
much. It's so much news. It's so much to process. Honestly, just out of the Middle East alone today, you could have had your mind blown. Just out of the Middle East, stuff's happening in Russia, Ukraine, Middle East, America. It's just shoo. It's a lot these days. It's a lot.
It's a load. I'm going to make sure to wrap up the rest of the Middle East news for y'all really quickly. We're going to throw Afghanistan in, although that's the Far East. We'll throw it in. But we were able to hear that in the Mediterranean, the Russians are heading home. They're not going to Libya. The Sparta II, which is a cargo vessel that's currently carrying Russian equipment, military equipment that was evacuated from Tartus port, is not actually stopping in Libya. It's passing by Libya and now heading back to Russia. So it appears that it's heading bound for St. Petersburg or bound for some northern port that's most likely completely covered in ice. Both of them are heading apparently for Kaliningrad, which appears also Sparta 1 appears to have suffered a breakdown, and it's turned on its transmitter and is heading for St. Petersburg. So it still looks like they're running with their tail tucked between their legs, and Russian ambitions within East Africa and West Africa are falling apart at this point, and they're not even considering that to be a strategically viable option any longer. We've also been able to hear that there is a possible military coup going on in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan at this point, as it appears that a minister, Haqqani, may be leading a coup. We're not really sure about that information yet. Once again, that's kind of like preliminary information that's coming out. Go ahead.
Just a casual coup. It could be happening. It may not be happening. You know, it's just so crazy in the Middle East right now, especially with Afghanistan. And it's also very hard to still accept that the Taliban is in charge of that country, trying to act like a legitimate government. That it's just like a casual coup. It's like today somebody might have taken it over, and nobody's like, that's not a big deal. You know, it happens.
Well, because the thing with Afghanistan, where it's like no one can even give a damn, is because the Taliban doesn't even really control the country. That's the problem with Afghanistan. There's no infrastructure there at all. So whoever is technically in control of Afghanistan is really just in control of Kabul, and that's it. Because there is no infrastructure outside of Kabul to really control the rest of the country. So if they're conducting a coup, it's practically just a question of who's the mayor of Kabul, because the rest of the country is practically on its own. It always has been. That's just how it is in Afghanistan. So it's like, maybe there's a coup, maybe there isn't. Like, who knows? We'll find out maybe tomorrow. But if it's happening, it doesn't really mean much. Like I just want to make that clear to everyone. The Taliban has run the country poorly since they took it over. They hate being bureaucrats. They all turned into bureaucrats. From what we know, the government, even in just Kabul alone, is being run poorly. The government doesn't exist outside of Kabul. So there's been loads of infighting and small battles that are still going on throughout the entirety of Afghanistan. Very, very unstable place. Most likely will remain so well into the future. It's like Afghanistan is what I would describe as an administrative hell. It is incredibly mountainous. The areas that are not mountainous are desolate desert wastelands, so there's really no kind of economic activity to be had there. The population is very small. It's very sparsely populated, so controlling this country is practically impossible for anyone. I mean, like, it's a miracle that the United States was there for 20 years and was able to prop up the Afghan government that we had. That was actually crazy to think that it lasted even 20 years. But
You know what's really sad is if you work a corporate job in America, you are tougher than the Taliban. The Taliban can't handle being a paper pusher at a desk. They can't take it. They went from literally scrapping for their lives and trying to fight off one of the biggest militaries on the planet and barely able to survive to actually doing somewhat mildly okay at that because they ended up coming out on top. To then they get put in the desk job position and they fall apart and crumble like it's just like they're weak. It's like, oh my God, they could survive the fight, but they couldn't survive simply running like the country. I thought that was supposed to be the easy part compared to the other part, but apparently it's not for the Taliban.
man, something that's crazy, man, is that like the Taliban is kind of like that one guy in that show. It was something about being a producer. Wait a minute, I know it, man. Like the Taliban's in the office, he's sitting there typing away at the keys. He's like, oh, I want to be a terrorist, like, or something like that. He starts singing a musical about it, like he wants to go back to when the Americans were occupying the place. Like, it's crazy to think that's how Afghanistan runs, but that is what it is. Just a little nugget of information for all of y'all today. Nothing really to take out of that one. But moving on from that and out of Afghanistan, it is time for us to move on over into, crazily enough, never believed we'd get to this, the American news segment. It's happening. Like, we're actually seeing enough happening in the Americas at this point. We got a segment on this. Don't worry. China will be thrown into this because it kind of pertains to the American news segment, and then we're getting right into Ukraine. But before we get into all of this, because we got loads to still cover, and the news night is young, so make sure to stick around, folks. We got a lot to cover. I do want to make sure that we are able to get to some kinds of questions before we get into the rest of this. So just a quick little mental break for Matthew and me, and a little mental break for all of y'all, so that we can kind of goof around for a little bit, answer a couple of questions, and get right back into the news. And also it allows me to talk a little bit more about the intro, which I saw that it was positively received by so many tonight, and I was very happy to see that. So with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first Super Chat question of the night. This one goes to David Dornblasser, who puts in a $100 donation, a massive support, and thank you very much, David, for the largest Super Chat of the night, and of course, helping to keep us running as a channel. And David said, "Good evening, Enforcers and LSA, and we certainly live in interesting times."
And I'd have to agree, David. We certainly live in some of the most interesting times that has ever graced the face of the planet. Some people have been saying these days, I've been hearing a catchphrase, man, when you live in historic times, you want them to end. Like, I've heard that a lot over the past few years. I'll be honest with y'all are very lucky to be living through times like these, because these are the kind of times that, for me and Matthew, 50 years in the future, are going to be asking us about what was life like back then. And we actually, interesting enough, got to cover all of it. So we'll be able to tell them exactly what it was like, and what it was like being able to talk about it. It's really crazy to think right there about that. But times are certainly interesting. I don't think a time has ever been seen like this before, to be entirely honest. It's a rare moment in history. You just never see stuff like this. So be happy that you're living through it, because one day it'll all be over. It'll all be just the background music playing to the story of our lives, and we'll be able to sit there and talk about it and laugh about it, that we went through all of this and hopefully made it through to the other side. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much for the massive support, David Dornblaster, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and throwing in your 10th Super Chat in the history of the channel. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here covering the news every single night. Also, sorry that there was some lag. We've got a brand new computer, so if we're having lag, it's on YouTube's end. But I still thank you all so much once again for the support. I thank you especially, David, because if it wasn't for folks like you who were massively supporting this channel, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to cover all of the insane news that's going on every single day at this point, everywhere around the world. We've moved from just being a Ukraine war news channel to really just breaking news in general. It's really crazy to think that that kind of a shift has been made, and loads of people still enjoy this channel because the news is just that interesting. So with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next Super Chat here, this one goes to Vicky Ramirez, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Vicky, for that support as well. And we appreciate that very much, because, of course, it's that support that keeps the channel running. And Vicky did not leave a comment, but she did leave a super sticker of the YouTube creature destroying the city. Very interesting. It's holding yellow flags for caution, I guess. It wants to make sure it's safe and abiding by regulations. But thank you very much, Vicky, for that support and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I'm telling you what, I guess those are the new renovations to the strip. But nevertheless, I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta say, thank you massively for helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, and that gives me an ability to slip in something I was wanting to talk about to all of y'all, which I'm sure many of y'all have seen tonight. Many of y'all have seen. And it's the new intro. We have a brand new intro. The whole thing's been redone. And we have 3 new songs in it. We have Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, which is one of my favorite patriotic songs. We also have the Lee Spring Army's White and Gold Anthem redone as an instrumental and actually orchestrated instead of being AI made. And then finally, last but not least, we have a brand new Star Spangled Banner. And I was so excited to be able to show this to all of y'all. It is also, I don't know what is up with so many people saying it's, let's see, it's struck, not stricken. Listen, folks, I'm from the South. Y'all are going to have to live with it, all right? We say struck down here. I've never heard anyone say stricken a deal.
Man, that boy got strucken.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, we stricken up a damn deal. I'll tell you what, yuck. But beyond that, I got to thank you all for enjoying the intro. I saw that there was a lot of positive praise about the intro, and I wanted to explain a little bit of the process or the theory behind the music that was made and the kind of things that y'all saw. I'm sure many of y'all saw that one of the new songs had had a music video that accompanied it, and it was a really cool one. It actually had a really interesting kind of a idea or a premise behind it. So many of y'all know that the Armed Forces medley is obviously a tribute to the Armed Forces of the United States. The Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean song is supposed to be our tribute to all of y'all who are watching the channel, whether you're in the armed forces or not. It's supposed to really be a celebration of all of those folks in the United States who get out and go to work every day. And to let y'all know that y'all are as important and valuable a part as the United States as the armed forces are. Every single person in this country plays their part to ensure that the United States continues to stand above the rest every single day, and that we're the leader of the sphere and the leader of an amazing group of a multinational coalition made up of Europeans, North Americans, South Americans, East Asian communities, all kinds of things. It's an incredible thing to think that the United States is the leader of that, and it's an amazing thing to think that it's because of the folks, all of those little people just like Matthew and me that get out there and go to work every single day in the farms and the cities and everywhere else that makes this country a reality every day. And we wanted to make a special homage to all of y'all to show y'all your own work, your own jobs, hopefully, and let y'all know that y'all should be proud of the part that y'all also play. And it really is an impressive part, a small one for everyone. There's countless millions of people who live in this country, and so everyone makes up just a tiny little fraction of the nation and its output every day, but each and every one of y'all is important in what y'all do and really does make a difference for the United States at large. That was really the purpose of Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean. The redone white and gold anthem is literally just a redoing of the anthem. The original one was AI made, and so everything about it was, kind of a little clunky. Like, I'll have to admit, like, there were some things that musically I could hear in it, and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good. So we wanted that redone, just for the fact of having it redone. So that one was redone. And then the Star Spangled Banner was redone because we also wanted our own version of it as well. And so that's why we ended up creating a new U.S. anthem. So I hope y'all enjoy that a great deal. I absolutely love doing it. I say we. This project is exclusively 100% the Enforcer. I love doing them. Like, that's why we keep on putting them out, because I absolutely love getting new music composed and putting it out for all of y'all. It costs a lot of money, but we love doing it because I just love to see y'all blown over the top with how good the music was. So I thank you so much once again for all of y'all enjoying that intro tonight. I hope y'all liked it a great deal, and even better, that's just the start. Like, it hasn't even really taken off yet because we have loads more to go. I actually have to get in contact with the orchestra, have it orchestrated, which actually will be happening really soon, most likely on the 21st of February, and then have it mixed by a professional mixer. And then once that's all done, then I put in the real tracks. These are just the rough drafts that are in right now. And then we put in the real tracks like we did for the Armed Forces medley, where it's an actual live orchestra, and then y'all will be able to hear the true sound of those tracks. So y'all are just kind of getting like the appetizer at this point, or the free sample, before we get all of the great news that's going to be coming out. The great music that's going to be coming out here soon. So with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the final question of the segment, and then right back into the news.
All right, so our last one of the segment goes to Hokey Redneck, yet another channel legend who's been around for ages, and we appreciate Hokey very much for throwing in that $50 support and helping to keep the channel running yet another night. And they said, for Key LMAO, a viewer in the chat, can you go over all the rare earths and what they are used for? And real quick, I did pull it up, by the way, exactly what Ukraine has, and we're told here that the EU Commission described the country as a potential source for over 20 critical raw materials. They have about $15 trillion in minerals, so a ton of wealth in minerals. The only catch is, though, it's about 70% or more of those resources are located in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, which are partly controlled by Russia, so that is a bit of a caveat. But to actually tell you exactly what they have $38 billion in lithium deposits, they have massive titanium reserves like we mentioned before, and also they have 19 million tons of graphite, they have iron ore, and also uranium, manganese, mercury, gallium, and other metals used in electronics. So that is, like, overall, like, the main ones they have. They do have quite a few more as well, but just a ton of minerals, by the way. But Enforcer, would you like to add any detail to that maybe I missed?
Matthew largely hit it down on the nail. Those are pretty much the most important kinds of rare earths that exist inside of Ukraine. Oddly enough, lithium and I believe titanium are not classified as rare earths, which is a little bit odd. I classify them as rare earths because that's what they are. I mean, it's pretty hard to find titanium, so I classify it as rare earth. But when I was looking around earlier, they said, crazily enough, lithium and titanium are not classified as rare earths. I was like, well, crazily enough, I'm just going to ignore that and say they are. Because it's like, I don't know who the hell these people are that are saying that, but it's like the United States doesn't have any titanium, so I consider it fairly rare. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. I thank you so much once again for support, Hokie Redneck, and I hope that does answer that question well for both of y'all, and give y'all a little bit of an idea of the material wealth, well, really the more so the raw minerals or rare earths wealth that Ukraine has below its surface. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news. And a huge thanks to you once again, Hokie Redneck, and everyone else who supported the channel tonight and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all make this thing possible day in and day out. And if it wasn't for all of y'all, we wouldn't be able to pay our bills and keep the lights on, and we wouldn't be able to do amazing projects like revamp our intro and get brand new original music straight from the source. Also, by the way, one more thing, I do want to make sure to do this because a lot of people think that I did that and I made the music. I want to give y'all a very clear shout out to an amazing composer, practically become the personal composer of this channel. His name is Marcos Barilari. He's an amazing composer. Actually, crazily enough, he makes all of these incredibly patriotic and great sounding renditions of American marches and songs, and he's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Really cool guy. He's an amazing guy to work with, and he is great at what he does. I gave him very little input. He comes out with the stuff like magic. Truly an amazing composer. He works with Disney as well, and I just got to say, I'm absolutely impressed with this guy's work. He does an amazing job, and really all of the credit, beyond just the titles of the songs or the songs that they are, all the credit for the composition and how they sound goes entirely to Marcos. He's the one who does that all, and he's incredible at what he does. He does a great job at it. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and now it's time for us to move on to the American segment of the news. We have been able to hear in massive news for United States weapons development programs that the United States has tested for the first time ever the Helios laser on board an active destroyer, the USS Preble, and we were able to get a picture of that, and it was cool as hell. And here it is, the USS Preble using the Helios.
Looks like straight out of Johnny Quest, honestly, when they shot that beam from that ship. It's crazy how much like science fiction that looks like.
It really is crazy how close we're getting to science fiction. And the Helios is a fairly powerful laser weapon system. We believe that it has a range of several miles at this point. We actually have an infographic made about the Helios system here. And let's see here. It's a 60 kilowatt high energy laser for counter-fast inshore attack craft and counter-drone, long-range intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and it's a counter-UAS mounted ISR Dazzler. So it appears that it has a razzle-dazzle on it, so that way you can really throw them off.
I said Dazzler. I tell you what, shock the drone too. The drone goes, ah! It's just shocked.
No, dude, you sit there and you say, quick, deploy the Dazzler, and then the ship like lifts up out of the water and it's got like legs, and it's like, hello my baby, hello my honey, hello my ragtime gal, and then the drone's like, wow, that really is dazzling right there. It's like
those
wow.
1950 ships, I'm telling you, they were wilding.
Dude, they were. It doesn't give us a range on this thing, interestingly enough, but I'm assuming that it's several miles, or at least well within the horizon for sure. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that. Still an amazing thing to see the United States finally starting to field its own laser weapon systems in the Navy, and hopefully we'll be able to see that this is rolled out fleet-wide. Moving on from that and into the rest of the news, we were able to see that military operations are starting to begin along the U.S.-Mexican border, as Mexico has now sent 10,000 troops to the U.S. border. And according to what we heard, the President of the United States has now paused the tariffs on the nation of Mexico, and we are most likely expecting that they will permanently be rolled back after the massive economic backlash that appeared was going to be created because of the attempted raising tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I also have to make an additional note that while we do not have any news bulletins on this, Canada has also pledged that they'll be providing 10,000 troops to the U.S.-led intervention against the cartels on the U.S.-Mexican border, and for these reasons, the same lift of the tariffs was done to Canada. So at this moment, the tariffs have largely disappeared against the United States and Canada, which are our two largest trading partners in the entirety of the world. We were able to see that U.S. military operations have officially begun as of today, as a U.S. Boeing RC-135 rivet joint was used today in the Gulf of California, which is crazily enough in Mexico, to begin surveillance of activities that are going on within this area near to Sonora, which many people know is, and also Sinaloa, which are pretty heavy in cartel activity. So we're most likely going to be seeing the U.S. military operations, along with Mexican and Canadian military operations, will be beginning relatively soon against the cartels near to the border area. We've also been able to hear down in Panama that Panama is considering removing Chinese companies such as C. Hutchinson from the ports at Balboa and the port at Cristobal. We are most likely going to see that that will not be successful, and this will most likely force the U.S.'s hand in retaking the Panama Canal Zone into the future. Once China gets involved economically in the country, it's a pretty nasty situation to get them removed, if not impossible. Moving on from that now to Panama, it is now time for us to move on over into Europe. Well, actually, I forgot. We have one more thing in the American news segment. China is now lifting its, imposing its own tariffs onto U.S. Largely bulk, I guess you could say, combustible resources. China is to impose a 10% tariff on U.S. oil and a 15% tariff on coal and liquefied natural gas. So it does appear that the Chinese are trying to do a little bit of economic, really trade war of their own against the United States. Have a feeling that might not really end up too well for them, because crazily enough, the Chinese actually buy a decent amount of U.S. coal. So I have a feeling that probably will not end up well for them, because a lot of their power grid runs on coal. So moving on from that and out of that bit of news, it's now time for us to finally move on into Europe. We were able to hear that France has now announced that they are going to be doubling their defense budget, meaning that they're going to be going from about, I believe at this point, it's around 2.1% to 4.2%, just 0.8% short of the 5% GDP spending quota that the President of the United States laid out, and also was further corroborated on by other members of executive agencies, stating that every country needs to raise their defense spending in NATO up to 5%, because they believe that the outbreak of World War II may be near to almost here on the horizon. We were able to see the statement from Macron, but considering we do not have a translation for that, we won't be showing it. Moving on from that and into Ukraine, it's now time for us to get on into the Ukraine war news. And there has been a decent amount. We were able to hear that the Astrakhan refinery within the city of Astrakhan was hit, and we were able to see a clip of it right here.
Взрыв такой, блин. Я проснулся.
Oh, блядь.
Капец, короче, все горит тут.
Блять!
В первую очередь горит.
All of our gas, блядь. All of our remaining gas, блядь. Oh, my
Проснулся от хлопка,
блядь.
короче. Валю на тайгу. Второй взрыв сейчас прогремел.
And that's
I looks like they smacked it pretty good.
Man, they smacking that thing hard, kind of like China trying to smack us with them terrorists, but it's only going to come back to bite them. I'm telling you what. But moving on from that and into Ukraine itself, we were able to see an Irish tea in service. I like to call this thing the ice tea, because not only is it taking out Russian missiles, it's doing it in a very relaxed and very nonchalant kind of a way. We're going to be muting the music there, but we can see the Irish tea fire, scare the cameraman, and there it goes, hitting the target just away from the Irish tea, only a few miles away. But you can see it at work several more times here as well. And just look at that.
I like the Irish tea. That's a pretty fast interceptor. That thing is quick.
Man, look at that. It largely uses modified AIM 120s, which is why they're so quick and so agile, because the AIM 120 was originally an air-to-air missile developed by the U.S. Air Force, or really companies that were trying to get a contract with the U.S. Air Force, but still largely used by the United States. The IRIS-T is a very effective weapon system at point defense. It only has a range, I believe, of around 16 miles, which isn't really that big. It's more of a medium caliber air defense battery, but it still does an incredibly good job at defending the skies as a point-based defense system. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to hear that apparently Ukraine now has working laser systems, according to a commander who said that it's already hit certain objects. We don't know what those objects could be. It could be that they tried to blind Budanov or something like that with it. I don't know. But
oh, bad laser pointing in the eye. I'll put a tag.
maybe. But moving on from that, it is now time for us to move on into the Kursk Oblast area. We have been able to see the Ukrainians have held their ground in this area, and they have been hitting Russian forces fairly significantly still within the area. We were able to see that one of the Ukrainian brigades in the area was able to significantly hit the Russian forces, and this is the 118th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. And we were able to see them here finding the Russians. We can see that they found the Ruskoy Soldat, and they're about to get him.
Risky soldat standing in the middle of a junkyard.
the way you said that, Matthew, it almost came out like one of those like abstract rap things. Ruski soldat standing in a junkyard. Like I was about to be like, man, are we like freestyling a poem? Like I was like, dude, like, oh, and they got
This
him.
Roosty's coming in so hard. He's like Emperor Palpatine. Call this man Jedi Skywalker because he's moving through these clouds like the something.
Man, Russians held down so hard like a cellophane wrapped Ukrainian nightmare. Like something like that, you know?
He
Like,
says some crazy stuff like that. That's weird.
yeah. It's like it doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't even have like a pentamic rhythm. Y'all thought I'm from Alabama and I didn't know what the hell that was, did y'all? But anyways,
Pentameter.
oh damn it.
Like, you are from Alabama, dang it.
Well, dang it, I can only hide it so well, I've been damned. But anyways, we can see them also hitting some Russian ladas as well.
Oh, RC smoothing. They're smoothing out the top of this Lada. Oh.
Man, the RC smoothing bomb arm. Call them the Requiem group, the way they be acquiring them Russians.
Also, someone said in the comments, they were referencing the meme, I like to rap, but I'm not a rapper.
Man, let's see. Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater. You know, something like that. But
I never
anyways,
understood that, Junk. It's still a mystery to me, even to this day.
I never understood it either. And I also do not understand why that guy on the radio acted like that was pure fire. I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. But moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we were able to see a picture of a Leopard 2A4 in the Ukrainian army. Look at that little fella. Covered in contact. Oh, it's an AMX-10 RC. Wow, look at that. I love the AMX-10s. I just think they're so cool looking. They're like tiny little tanks, and that's what they literally are. They're just a light tank. But anyways, moving on from that, it's now time for us to move on into our next little clip, where we got to see that a Russian supply truck was destroyed, but the wipers were still working, so I guess that counts as slightly usable, right? Here's the clip. And look at those wipers. They are going to town. The entire truck is on fire, but the wipers are still working.
You gotta respect it. The Russians, they'll keep the wipers working, that's for sure. But nothing else will work.
Dude, the Russians said, we are going to design everything with no fail-safes and no redundancies to lower costs. But what about the windshield wipers? We will give it triple redundancy. That will be the only thing, though. Only the windshield wipers will work, Bliat.
It's honestly like a metaphor for the entire Russian country at this point. Nothing on the truck works, but the useless part, the windshield wipers, which is essentially Putin, is still working, but the engine's not working.
Man, it's trying to wipe through all that smoke building up on the smoke screen, so that way the Russians can get out of their daydreams and see reality, which is that they suck and they're losing. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we got to see some Russian logistics mules. You know, Matthew, those hard-working logistics mules that keep the whole logistical infrastructure running. You know what they look like?
They look like asses.
No, they legitimately are mules. Like, they're actually starting to use mules now for logistics.
Well, they are asses. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. They look kind of small because of the angle that they were taking. You would think these are like miniature donkeys. No. These are full-size asses. I can promise you that. And the Russians are apparently using them to move stuff around. I guess you could say that that's a bit of an ass move, but, you know, I guess if, you got enough asses, you can eventually move something around, I suppose. But moving on from that, I tried to make that joke work. I think that might have fallen flat. But we were also able to see some Russian cavalry as well. They're going back to the 19th century these days. I think
we actually predicted this a little while back, actually. I think we said they would eventually be riding the battle on horses when they get running out of the equipment.
Dude, they're about to create a spaghetti Russian called a fistful of rubles, which is equivalent to 1 penny. It's like it's something like that. It's like, man, it's like they're not gonna have a good movie there, man. They're gonna be like, all of this money is trapped in this graveyard, Bliat. And it's literally like a giant ass like landfill full of rubles on top of this graveyard. And like that landfill of rubles is maybe worth $100 US. It's like this isn't really gonna be a great mystery movie because like everyone's gonna be like, yeah, the landfill of rubles right down the street. Like it's not even gonna be a massive mystery to go find it or anything. But moving on from that, and on from that, from the ass and horse jokes, Matthew, the Russian army has got the face of the horse and an ass of a mule. I guess you could call it the modern day fighting equivalent of dog shit. But moving on from that, it's time for us to move on into the Russian casualty report. And holy moly!
Oh man, we've got some losses today. Look at that. It seems like 2 is the new 10 for Bobcats, but they're still gaining the Bobcats daily. It looks tremendous to see once again. Of course, we love the Bobcats like we love the Poles. But Enforcer, tell us more.
Man, we love the Poles, both the Polish people and the Poles we run here on this stream. But nevertheless, Miss Disa, keeper of the records, has been able to throw out not only a solid left hook, but also the daily records keeping. And Miss Disa is always the keeper of the records here on this channel. Troop losses drop to low 1,400 range. Tanks are up compared to the past 2 days. At 66 artillery systems is tied with 3 others as the 8th highest daily loss. At 123 supply trucks and fuel tanks is the 10th highest daily loss in the war. Moving on into the casualty report itself and giving you all those sweet details you would like to know. 1,270 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the past 48 hours, along with 24 APCs, 123 supply trucks, 18 main battle tanks, 66 artillery pieces, 92 drones, 1 MLRS, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, it was an impressively good day, and the Russians' tank losses are getting really close to 10,000. I guess, after they hit 10K, I guess it's a marathon at that point. But nevertheless, we had... Man, the jokes are dad jokes tonight, and I might become am I becoming a father soon? Hopefully not. Like at least for now. But nevertheless, the losses are great, and it appears that the Russian Federation is still taking some significant blows. Aw, man, did someone call? Not now. We'll get to that later. Moving on from that, moving on from that and down into the Luhansk and Donetsk areas, where most of the battles are raging at this point. We did get to see that the battle for the Kremenna Forest is still ongoing at this point, as we have been able to see the Brazilian volunteers continuing their heroic defense of the Seberansky Forest, one of the hardest fighting units within the area of the woods at this point. And here is one of their clips from today.
11, 5, 9, and 20.
Okay, we're going to be muting that. I think that's the War of the Worlds is broadcast on the radio in the 1930s in New Jersey. But
sounds like the number stations, like call-outs or something like that.
Man, you know what? We ought to start creating a mystery, man. We ought to run a shortwave radio and just get on it every 3 days and go 9, 40, 20, 10. And people would be going, wow, what does this mean? Something like that.
Wow, the enforcers have really upped their game. They're sending out special codes now.
Dude, we would be on a Russian hit list, like pronto. Like, we're already on one. We'd be on, like, the triple deluxe one,
Man, put me at the top.
Oh, and they hit a tree. Look at that. Call them foresters these days. The Department of Fish and Wildlife out here.
Also, is this footage good to show? Are you sure you vetted it?
Oh, yes, I've vetted it. It should be well. It's only showing some smoke and flames.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
And of course, slow, baby. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Russians getting hit pretty hard by the 45th Brigade. This was kind of in the Slavyansk direction.
Man, they're always hitting those little Uties. The little Uties, they're just getting hit all the time. Look at that little rinky-dink propeller in the back of it. It was like a little hobby shop propeller.
Man, America invented the propeller.
Man, the propeller.
Man, Massachusetts.
you know the propeller. Man, when somebody starts a lecture off talking about the propeller, it's that lecture's about to be rough.
When they say the War of 1812 happened on the Great Lakes, you're in for a trip.
When they say that, let's see here, what was the other one they said? You see, here's why Russia is massive compared to the rest of the world. It's like, the Mercator projection is like, it's not really that large, and they'll be like pointing to it showing, hey, you can fit 5 Americas inside of Russia. It's like, okay.
Damn, would you look at that? That country's got to be so powerful and strong because it's got so much land, because land always means power, right? It's not like South Korea.
That's literally what every high school teacher said, I think, except for one of them that taught like history and world events, is they all acted like Russia was actually that large, which I fully didn't understand until I was out of high school, because I'd always been told that by the teachers. And when I realized, okay, like it's just a map projection making it look that large, it's really not that large. I was like, so you're telling me that every single high school history teacher was telling me that you could fit in multiple countries like China multiple times into Russia, and it's not even the case?
Man, goodness. Dude, like, I think I was the one who told you about the Mercator projection, wasn't I? I was like, dude, it's not like that, man. I was like, this thing, like, it's a flat map, and they're trying to project a globe on it, so everything gets bigger the further up or down you go, from the equator.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I wasn't told that either in school, folks. Like, I just want to make that clear. Nobody told me. I had to find that out by reading around and looking around on YouTube. And then when I found that out, I was like, oh! I was like, oh my god, I didn't know. Like, I literally did not know until, like, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Well, actually, it was 5 years ago because I had already graduated at that point and then found that out and then talked about it. But, like, hey, Russia's so big, it's got to be powerful. I mean, it's got to be more powerful than America. They could squish America because you put Russia on top of America, there's no room. But damn, it's not like South Korea could be as strong and powerful because they're just some tiny little country. There can't be anyone living there, and they couldn't surely make a lot of money on that little piece of land. And then the truth is that South Korea economically is as powerful as Russia, and that's why size is very deceiving. But anyways, we're going to move on from that before the jokes start rolling in because I can already feel it. But moving on from that, we also got to see some mass graves. It appears that the Russians are taking so many losses, they're whipping out the industrial graveyards at this point. Here you go, guys. That's the excavator working. It's an effing mass grave. There's an effing truck standing by there. They effing brought it in. You'll see further over there now. Here it is. You can see the trucks over there. They're all lined up. Those are trucks carrying the deceased of the Russian army. That's what it's all about. They brought in effing corpses, mass graves, in short. They bury guys here, and then they say they're effing missing. Who's this guy, Gordon Ramsay? I've never heard this many F words in a single amount of time than Gordon Ramsay. You can see them dragging it in. So what's that? So that's what's going on around here.
Man, that's honestly horrible. Like, I know obviously the Russians are the enemy, but that's horrible to see that much loss of human life on any side. That's just horrific. That's the side right here that the Russians do not want to let anybody see under any circumstance, to show you that. That's wild. They have literally excavators out there digging trenches. And this is a massive field, by the way, and they have freaking semi-trucks pulling them in. That is freaking sick.
Man, it's just...
In a bad way.
It's really sad, man. It really is sad when you think about it. All of this loss is going to keep going for a good while, too. Like, it's guaranteed at this point. And they're getting nothing out of it, really. It's like they're not even really fighting for anything at all, much less for anything that would benefit their nation. It's like, what was the point of this conflict? And there just really isn't any. It's really a sad thing when you think about it. But moving on from that, and on down into the Pokrovsk area, we also got to see a Russian buggy get destroyed today. Check this out. Here comes the drone. Oh, that little buggy's doing donuts. Oh, look at it. Look at it. And it didn't make it.
That's a good drone driver to be able to hit the thing circling around like that.
Man, they raise them right in Ukraine. They get them on that FPV drone quick. And also, I see some people saying in Canada, they taught us the difference in between the globe and the flat map pretty easily. Listen, if you went to school, I'm sure they did that in other American schools too. Like, but if you're from where we're from, education wasn't really the priority. Priority was football, baby. Let's get that high school football kind of team to the championships. Damn. Everything else can be sacrificed. Like, that was literally like the prerogative of our school system for the large part when we were there. So everything else was sacrificed to try and get that damn football team to the state championships. And crazily enough, they did it. I actually did it, I think, 2 years, like, straight. Like, I was...
At the expense of everybody else's intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, you just had a school of people who didn't know what the hell was going on in the world or what the story of the world was or anything. But I'd be damned, we actually made it to the state championship twice while I was there, and I think they're still making it at this point, too. So they kind of got that part ironed down. It's just that they gave up everything else to do it. But we could see them absolutely obliterating the Russians down there. Just look at that. And that's the end
I've
of the
never seen this many colors on a thermal like that's like freaking Color Central.
Man, I'm telling you what, it's like we just finally discovered color TV, which is a great thing, by the way. Y'all should look into it sometimes. But moving on from that, we've also been able to see a Russian SPG getting destroyed in this area as well. Andy Kaufman says, so roll tide, baby. Yeah. Get him, coach. Our highest paid public official, I believe, in the state of Alabama are football coaches, just to let y'all know. That's generally the case for most U.S. states, by the way. The highest paid people on the state payroll are football coaches. They get paid more than the governor most times.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Alabama public schools, how to make moonshine. No, they wouldn't teach you that. No, they wouldn't teach you that one at all. You had to wait till after school. But moving on from
Oh,
that
you
and
didn't
down,
you didn't sign up for the home cooking class?
man, I know that home ec class, they were cooking some terrible stuff in there, man. Every time I saw someone come out with some, I was like, what the hell is that? They'd be like, it's a cake.
It felt like anytime you'd open the door to that place, it was like freaking smoke would come out of it or something. You'd be like, "What happened?" Oh, somebody burned something. It's like, how can I be burning something every time I walk by here?
Man, I'm telling you, man, it's like, geez. Like, come on. It's like, y'all can't be doing this. Come on, Jack. But moving on from that and down in the Volodar, we also got to see the town of Volodar. Of course, an unfortunate sight. The Russians took it a couple of months ago, but it took this level of devastation for them to finally take the town.
Every commie block on the block is burned out.
Man, it really is a sad thing. But the Ukrainians held this thing well. They held it for nearly 2 years, and then they finally got pushed out. And it really, the devastation is really a testament to how doggedly the Ukrainians defended this town for that long. This was the site of countless battles. There was at least 3 battles, 3 major ones for Volodar. The third one finally took the town, but before that there was 2 significant battles, and the Russians just couldn't take it. It's really a story of Ukrainian defenders doing their best to hold a town for the longest period of time. Probably one of the most impressive battlefields of a smaller size that's been seen in the entirety of the war. But moving on from that, we did get to see that a new battlefield is evolving near to Velika Novosilka, as the Ukrainians are absolutely obliterating Russian attack columns one after the other as they try and make their way into Velika Novosilka. And we could see them, the Ukrainians, bringing in the artillery and already trying to make sure to clear the Russians out.
I like how the Ukrainians started blurring out the information at the bottom, like all the telemetry and all that stuff. I was wondering before why they didn't do that previously, but it looks like they've wised up on that front.
Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter, though, because it's flying over the active battlefield, so it's not really like it's giving away a lot, I suppose, but still a good thing that they blurred it out.
Also, thank you, Tom Upshaw, for the kind words. You said best podcast or newscast ever. Thank you very much for that.
You.
It really doesn't mean a lot to hear that from the viewers.
Yeah, that is really nice of you. Thank you so much. We try our best here, and hopefully it shows through. But when you see the artillery coming on in again, I gotta tell you, man, I don't know what it is, man, but you know how I was telling you I had like that slight headache before the stream?
Yeah.
Man, I've been feeling lightheaded ever since I said it earlier in the stream. I mean, like, insanely lightheaded. I don't know what it is.
It could be like the beginnings of a migraine coming on or something. That's usually what happens. You start getting that lightheaded, like, weird, like, floating sensation, like whenever a migraine's coming on or something. It could be something like that.
Oh, dang, man. Don't scare me, man. I don't want to have a migraine.
Oh, if you hadn't gotten it yet, it might just stay in that phase and just go away.
Yeah, hopefully so. And also, sorry, folks, that I do have a migraine or a headache. We've had to deal with some stupid stuff yesterday, and it really wore, like, in the middle of working on everything that we were doing for all of y'all for in the intro today and all that, we had to deal with some stupid stuff. It wears us out every time we have to deal with it. I'm not going to go into a lot more detail than that, but we always want to make sure to get on air and give you all the best show we can every night. So I'm just trying to battle it through, but I kind of want to explain to y'all what I'm talking about so that way y'all aren't thinking, is he going to drop dead? Is he having a stroke? Nah, it's none of that. It's just that, dealing with the stupidity of some things, it just wears you down. But we're still here, and we're still running the show. So with that, we can see them continuing to slam that Russian attack column that's made it into the town. And we can see them slamming down into the Russian column an artillery shell, most likely from a 155mm howitzer. And now we're seeing them laying down the heat. I mean, that's a large amount of artillery right there. Andy Kaufman said, if you're really from Alabama, I'm proud of you guys. We are really from Alabama. We really are, like, legitimately. We were born and raised in the state, and we're still here. Maybe
honestly,
not...
I'm glad to hear that somebody is like questioning whether or not we're from Alabama. I guess that's a compliment.
Yeah, like we were born and raised of the soil of Alabama. We were born on Alabama soil, and we've lived on Alabama soil our entire lives. So we are Alabama born and bred, as true as it gets. So I hope that does kind of give an answer to that. I also saw someone ask earlier, since we're on the topic, what's Alabama like? Alabama is interesting. From our travels, we generally get the idea Alabama is a lot poorer than most other places in the U.S. A lot less to do in terms of recreation here. Most people just kind of have a job, and that's about it. You're really lucky to have a job these days, too, kind of around here, because not really easy to find, even here in Alabama. But there's a decent amount of nice people. I just generally would say that most of those nice people do not live in the vicinity of the city of Birmingham. Like I just got to be honest there. Everywhere in Alabama, I'd say is full of nice people. It's not going to be the nicest places you've seen, but generally nice people, except for Birmingham. There are nice people in Birmingham. There are outliers, but generally across the board, the people of Birmingham are not the nicest. Like, they're probably some of the meanest, most stuck-up people I've met in general. But there are great outliers, though. Some viewers here watching this channel are actually from Birmingham. We actually know them as friends, and they're great folks, amazing folks. But, you know, when you run into someone from Birmingham, you know, it's rough usually. But also, moving on from that, we did get to see another armored column attempting to break into Nova Soka today, and it was also repelled as well.
Oh, look, they put, like, Italian barcodes at the top of the screen.
Man, Italian barcodes.
Yeah.
And let's see.
Someone said Alabama equals richer Mississippi. Honestly, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
trying to
true.
dog on Mississippi, but Mississippi is like, it's rougher than Alabama. I'm not gonna lie. Like, between Alabama and Mississippi, I'd much rather be in Alabama. Like, Mississippi is just they don't keep the infrastructure up. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's a little interesting here. And also, I see some people saying people matter more than things. I certainly agree, but also at the same time, Alabama is so devoid of things, especially these days. It's kind of been getting worse the whole time we've been alive. There really isn't a lot to do, like, at all. Like, you know, like when we get off this show, Matthew and me will talk about, well, what do we want to go do? And we're like, well, there's really nothing, you know. It's like it's like there's hardly anything to do. There's a Topgolf here in Birmingham, and there's a few other things, but beyond that, not much. So if you're not shooting a rifle, going to Topgolf, or just walking around, that's about it. That's all there is to do in Birmingham. And it's the biggest city in Alabama. It's the most prosperous city in Alabama too. So, you know, that's an interesting deal. I hear that there's a lot more to do elsewhere in other places. It's just that we don't have a lot of that here. But moving on from that, and on up into Kyiv, it is now time for us to finally get to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, which I do not have down on the map tonight. I believe I had a lapse and I did not put that down. So let me go to the website of the president of Ukraine and let me go grab it for y'all. And we have it right here. And it is a long one. I am very pleased with this. It is a long speech. It's 6 minutes and 11 seconds. I want to make sure to get that readout to Matthew so that way he's not rushing behind the scenes to do everything. We've got some time. And so without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Give me speech.
Long-lasting peach.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Провів сьогодні РНБО, урядовці, прем'єр-міністр Шмигаль, перший віце-прем'єр Свириденко доповіли щодо програм підтримки наших людей, громадян України та українських бізнесів. Є підтримка, є оселя, безкоштовне харчування для українських дітей в школах, програма вчительської доплати, яка запрацювала з нового року, програма «Зроблено в Україні» та інші наші програми. Як би не було складно, ми знаходимо кошти, щоб допомогти всім українцям, українським виробникам. Майже 13 мільйонів заявок на є-підтримку і майже 13 мільярдів гривень виплачено безпосередньо українським сім'ям, нашим громадянам. Кількість учасників програми доводить її потрібність і потрібність аналогічних програм прямої підтримки людей. Є вже більш ніж 5 мільйонів клієнтів програми «Національний кешбек». Це теж така кількість учасників, яка говорить сама за себе. Ми працюємо над тим, щоб збільшувати всі формати підтримки, які ефективні, і це буде. Я дав відповідні доручення уряду. Важливо, вже готові на весну з індексацією пенсій, і це буде з 1 березня. Сьогодні ж ми заслухали деякі ключові питання щодо нашої фінансової стійкості, щодо фінансової дисципліни. Є значна проблема з дисбалансом імпорту та експорту. Імпорт, і це стосується не зброї, значно перевищує наш експорт. Тенденція яку слід змінити, слід значно більше створювати можливостей для виробництва в Україні, для підтримки всіх форм економічної діяльності в Україні. Так само, як ми вже заводимо іноземні інвестиції у виробництво зброї, урядовці повинні працювати і щодо інших галузей. І також ми доручили працювати з партнерами, щоб більше було нашого ресурсу, нашого спільного європейського ресурсу для безпеки економічної діяльності. І це багато аспектів – від гуманітарного розмінування, розмінування аграрних земель до більшого захисту наших міст. І йдеться передусім про протиповітряну оборону. Сьогодні ж на РНБО були важливі доповіді щодо фінансової чистоти в країні. Нещодавно відбулись зміни керівників податкової служби та фінмоніторингу, і вже є перші результати. Результати по тіньових фінансових схемах, які нарешті зупинені. І це стосується і олігархів, і посадовців, і депутатів, і тих, хто використовував або використовує різні фонди, щоб фактично приховувати кошти. Мільярди гривень, відповідні матеріали у правоохоронних органів вже. Розслідування мають бути об'єктивними, незважаючи на те, хто порушує закон. Ухвалено на РНБО і рішення щодо санкцій. Списки незабаром і буде кілька жорстких пакетів. Ще за сьогодні зустріч щодо розвитку наших повітряних сил. Ми готуємо зміни і готуємось до того, як в українському небі запрацюють французькі винищувачі із нашими пілотами. Зустрівся з керівником МАГАТЕ Гроссі, і зараз працюють відповідні місії МАГАТЕ в Україні на атомних станціях. І ми домовились, що місії працюватимуть активніше і на інших критично важливих об'єктах енергосистеми. Ми говорили з паном Гроссі і про українців, про наших громадян, про заручників, яких російські окупанти захопили з Енергодару. Очікуємо, що МАГАТЕ буде активною в роботі заради звільнення цих українських громадян. Я вдячний, що директор МАГАТЕ підтримав українську стратегію добудови атомних блоків на Хмельницькій АЕС. Проект добудови є ключем до енергетичної незалежності України і енергетичної стабільності регіону. І важливо, щоб народні депутати України підтримали цей проект. Детально говорили про ситуацію на Запорізькій станції. Необхідно повернути законний український контроль, реальну роботу станції в Україні і для України. І ми запрошуємо наших партнерів працювати з нами на цьому напрямку. Це взаємовигідні речі, це енергетика, яка зробить значно більш міцною Європу і значно більш взаємовигідними наші відносини з Америкою. До речі, команди наші вже почали предметно говорити. Команди України та Сполучених Штатів. Сьогодні керівник Офісу Андрій Єрмак говорив з Майклом Волцем. Ми готуємо графік зустрічей. І також сьогодні я говорив з прем'єр-міністром Австралії. І найголовніше – це нові кроки для тиску на Росію за війну, тиску заради справедливого миру. Зберігаємо нашу єдність, глобальну єдність, і це реально зменшує російську можливість продовжувати цю божевільну та злочинну агресію. Агресію Росії проти України. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає Україні. Слава всім, хто робить нашу державу сильніше. Слава Україні!
And Iran Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1077 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that is moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, what a fun segment it is. And Matthew, I just realized why I was lightheaded.
Why was that?
I had no food in me.
No food, eh?
Yes, I'll tell you what I got in the middle of the stream. Actually, did not get done eating it in time. I got some tortilla chips and some guacamole. And it actually has made my lightheadedness disappear, like just a little bit I had. So with that in mind, I'm probably going to try in between the segments to try and finish that thing up, because apparently I was just starving to death, which is a little bit weird because Matthew cooked up like this entire bowl. It was like a rice and beef bowl today, and it was like pretty decent, and I just like, I don't know, it didn't hold me over. Well, actually it did hold. Matthew, why the hell do we always say that? It held me over for like 6 hours, and then we're always like, oh, it didn't hold us over that long. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well for all of y'all, just in case you're wondering, what's wrong with Enforcer? I was apparently just starving and had no clue. So with that, I hope that gives y'all a little bit of solace to what was going on there. But it is time for us to move on and into all of these questions, all of these different things. And Matthew, I understand that you're asking the question about something I unfortunately did not cover tonight, but still was something that Zelensky did say. Ukraine stated, or more so Zelensky stated today, that Ukraine needs nukes or NATO to avoid getting Russia invading them a second time in the future. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts on this. A lot of people have been trying to say whether they think this is a good idea or not, or what should Ukraine get into the future. And so, Matthew, if you would like to, please take your time. What are you thinking about that, and what is everyone else thinking about that as well?
All right, so moving on to our final question segment of the night, we have that poll that the Enforcer just mentioned to get to, and this is the new modern-day guns and butter. It's now nukes or NATO. So 47% said Ukraine should get NATO membership, while only 29% said Ukraine should get nuclear weapons, and 18% said Ukraine can get neither right now. Excuse me for messing that one up. But I would say, generally speaking, that Ukraine honestly probably cannot get nuclear weapons. That's something the United States would probably never agree to. Russia's definitely not agreeing to that, but we're not really caring what they think anyway. And honestly, I don't think really most people are going to agree to that, because most people are against nuclear proliferation, and they do not want any more countries getting nuclear weapons. That's part of the reason why we're preventing Iran from developing a nuke, is because, once again, we want to prevent that from happening. Because right now, you see how bad it can get with North Korea if a state decides to go rogue. So that is something that most people are against, and actually only 29% were in support of the nuclear weapons issue. It looks like most people, 46%, believe they should get NATO membership. I would agree with that. They do need to get that. If they do not have it, and the war comes to a ceasefire or something like that, then Ukraine will get reinvaded again in a couple of years. That is a 100% certainty. Putin's already made that clear, and that would give him a perfect chance to rearm his country and then try again the second time after learning from his mistakes. So that would mean probably bad things for Ukraine. So overall, I'm with the 46%. I say they should get NATO membership. They probably cannot get it right this second, but I think the war is going to continue probably for another year or two at least. I don't think it's ending this year. I think that's pretty clear at this point. I don't care what anybody's saying out there talking about, oh, there's good talks going on. We haven't seen it. I don't believe it. So I think that's the case. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the proposal that Zelensky has moved forward is fairly decent. Nukes would pretty much stop anyone from doing anything to Ukraine. But I'd say that that's a definite no. I'm not a big fan of nuclear proliferation, and I'm also not really a big fan of giving Ukraine nuclear weapons, much less anyone else. So with that in mind, I would say that NATO membership really should be what we're striving for with Ukraine. It would make the most sense. I think it would be the best thing overall. I just don't really see it to where they would get nuclear weapons or develop a nuclear weapon, and that would work well. That is nuclear proliferation, something that we generally are against. And not only that, we really want to make sure that there is the least amount of countries in the world with nuclear weapons. And out of all those countries, we want to make sure that the amount of existing nuclear weapons is also small as well. So with that in mind, I generally would say that I would be with the 46%. They should get NATO membership. And speaking of guns and butter, you know something, Matthew? Why don't, instead of asking the question guns or butter, why don't they just have both and grease the bullets with the butter? I mean, you know, it sounds like a good solution to me. You get both of them in one go.
Guns and butter. Who said you had to choose? We're taking both. Bigly.
Guns and butter, Land O'Lakes. Like it's something like that.
The new problem is guns and eggs. Eggs are going through the roof. They're expensive. Why is it? We don't know. They say it's a flu, but we really don't know.
You know, we've been looking into some alternative eggs. We've been looking at the golden goose, and we've also been looking at the Easter bunny. I don't know why the Easter bunny makes eggs. It's a bunny. It's a mammal, but nevertheless makes eggs, not questioning it. Cadbury. We're going to find out if it can make eggs, and then we're going to send out these eggs, because I guess it cannot die from the bird flu. It is technically a mammal. Well, birds are mammals too, but let's not talk about that. 2 Corinthians. We're going to talk about the one bunny that creates hundreds of millions of eggs. Don't know how it works. They're all multicolored. They also have to put them in a dip. They're originally white, but you put them in a dip, smells like shit, and then you pull the eggs out of the dip.
No. Wrong. Golden goose. That's what we're looking for. Golden egg.
We're going to invade Easter Island. We're going to take all of the bunnies off Easter Island, and we're going to redistribute them across the chicken farms of America. We're going to inject them with chlorine. They're going to shit out eggs so fast that the egg prices will drop tremendously. I think it's a great idea. And I see that many people in the chat are saying that platypus eggs might be good. That's an idea. We might want to use platypus eggs. I heard that there was one platypus that was really popular. Bury the platypus. Great animal. I don't really know a lot about him. He's blue, but we could use him to make eggs, maybe. I see some people saying birds are not real. I got to be honest with you. I don't know about that one. Sounds a little like crazy talk to me. A little crazy. Not going to lie. I'm going to have to say that's like crazy little Putin, crazy little guy. He's just a little tiny guy. Have y'all seen how tall he is? I'm like 6'2". He's like 5'6". He's like a midget. But anyway, so with that, someone said, please proceed with the news. Buddy, it's over. It's over. You're in the question segment. We're here to goof off with all of you, to have a little fun. Every once in a while, life doesn't have to be all about business, Putin on the Ritz. You can have some fun, and you ought to know. You're putting on the Ritz. Like, you ought to know to have some fun. Your name is funny. Come on, loosen up a little. But nevertheless, let's see. Someone said, birds are manufactured in windmills. We're going to have to increase the amount of windmills so that way we can get more chickens. But anyways, with that,
We're about to take so many super chats, you're going to get tired of taking super chats. You're going to say, no more super chats. Get them out of here. Go. Don't turn the cameras off.
The super chat list just got 10 questions longer. But anyways,
We're gonna put those tariffs. Oh, those tariffs! I love those tariffs. We're gonna put them right on these super chatters and tax them to death.
We're going to invade the Bahamas. We're going to develop it with BlackRock. Like, it's a great thing. Like, it's a wonderful thing. It's a great territory, wonderful territory. Everyone goes, why do we need it? We already got Florida. Well, there's not enough beachfront property. But anyways, moving on from that, I'm going to tell you a little something about real estate. It's not real. It's just a state.
That's where I live. The real estate.
Real estate is not a practice of selling property. It's a state of real. It's a real estate. Like
That's me.
You gotta be in a state of being real. And Paul Anderson said, I love this news, real news. Well, I gotta thank you. It is the greatest news, the best news that there ever was. No one's ever seen news as great as ours. Everyone comes around and they go, wow, that's great news. I wonder where they get that news. And they just get it from us. It's just great. Everyone who comes onto this show, they go, wow, I love this show. This is a wonderful show. But anyways, we do have many questions. We have great questions, a lot of questions. As Zelensky would call it, long-lasting questions. And we got to make sure to get to every single one of them before the night's out. And so, Matthew, tell us. Please, take it away. Who's the first?
All right, so jumping right back into our Super Chat segment here after the momentary brief lapse of sanity of both. We are jumping into this one, which goes to Michael Tripto, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. Thank you very much, Michael Tripto, for the support and also being a longtime channel legend. He's been around for ages, and thank you very much, Michael, as well, for supporting us in our work once again. He said, matching the rest.
Hey, and I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to make this channel possible, Michael. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we just simply wouldn't be able to be here and do this every single night. And so thank you for matching that. Thank you for matching that tremendously, as a matter of fact. Because, once again, I got to say this time and time again to everyone who supports this channel. Y'all are the folks who make this thing possible. Y'all are the folks who made it possible for me to do all of the stuff that we've done with the intro. For Matthew to be able to come out with a Greenland video, which I believe will be out sometime this week. I believe there's a small delay, but
Yeah,
It
so
will be.
it'll be out either tomorrow evening or it'll be out Thursday at the latest. That's the current time schedule on that. Had a little bit of a delay with animations and also some other things in the background as well. So between those two different delays, it should be out in a day or so. Sorry about that delay, because I know I said it was going to come out Monday, and obviously now it's Tuesday night and it's not out yet. So the delay was no fault of anybody. It was just simply some things that came up, but it will be coming out, and I think y'all will be impressed.
I have to say, y'all, generally the thing with this is that you can't rush art, and Matthew's documentary is going to be short of art. It's really good. It's really great. I almost telling him about to do the impression, man. Like, it's short of art. It's really good. It's really great. It's really the best. I walked into the room. I said, wow, that's a great video. I'm not saying it. Other people are saying, some people are saying that's a great video. I've only been the only person to see it, but I still think it's great. But it is an incredibly good video. I cannot even make any ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm biased because I also am a part of this channel. So, you know, like, we have an invested interest in saying it's good, but take it from a biased voice that it's great. I've been able to see the animations that came through. Some of y'all who are on Patreon may have seen some rough drafts of them. They are just insane. Like, they look so good. It's like A-class kind of YouTube channel sort of content that we're going to be having coming out here. It's something that I got to be honest with y'all, it brings a little tear to my eye, because that's what I wanted to do 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago now, when I started this channel way back in August of 2021. I wanted to make videos like that. And Matthew is finally putting out the first video ever that is exactly the way I would have done it if I could have had the knowledge and the expertise to do it that way 3 years ago. So a massive shout out to Matthew. He is doing something that was my dream when I first started this channel, and he's going to be the first one to put out a video of this quality on this channel ever. So I cannot wait for y'all to see it. And DT said, what's the video about? It's about Greenland, and America saying that they want it. So that's really the whole premise of it.
It's about the land of green, a land of money.
They sit there and they say, it's Greenland. I don't see a lot of green. I see a lot of white. It's not really nice. It's covered in ice. Not really good. 10% of the land is covered in green. I feel like they're liars. Absolute liars. Some kind of a con or a scam. By the way, buy my coin. But nevertheless, I do have to say that we're going to have to go up there. We're going to have to turn Greenland green. We're going to have to drain the ice, turn it green. We got to make it green. It's great to be green. It's wonderful to be green. You don't want to be in the red.
They said, you know, we should take Greenland because there's so many minerals and resources. We can't let China have that. Let's take Greenland. It's like, my friend, there's literally Ukraine right there with all these minerals. Somebody must have just informed someone recently that there was plenty of minerals in Ukraine, because all of a sudden, now let's trade military aid for minerals. I'm glad they caught on, though, because it's like, you know, the minerals have been sitting there, and I believe Zelensky's been outlining in his peace plan that he was willing to trade those minerals in exchange for the military aid. So I'm glad someone finally caught on to that and realized it. I guess it doesn't matter as long as they eventually realized it, and they did now, but yeah, it's like all the minerals you want is in Ukraine. And all you have to do is support them and make sure they don't get defeated by a dictatorship, which is something we were probably going to do anyway. So, you know, it's a win-win.
Dude, he sat there and said, we're going to have to take Greenland. We're going to have to do it. And this was it. Mr. President, what? We're going to ask for Ukrainian rare metals. Like, it's like...
What happened to that? The calls to take Greenland, though. What happened to that?
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes things happen. It's the art of the deal. It's like we just have to move on.
We're going to rename Ukraine to Greenland, land of money.
We're going to call Ukraine Greenland 2.0, a lot easier. Like, no, there's no mile of ice on top of Ukraine. We can just get right to the shit, like right to it. I heard that lithium's great. So is titanium. I like titanium. Great titanium. Has the first three letters in titanium. Great mixture. Wonderful thing. But anyway, so moving on from that. Oh, dude. Let's see here. Let's see. Wait, hang on. You know what? Matthew, they lied. The Gulf of Mexico is still the Gulf of Mexico here on Google. They said it was going to change sometime.
Yeah, I thought they said they were changing it on Monday. I guess they pushed it back a little bit or something. Because I could have sworn I heard that Google was going to change that.
Man, I'm not going to lie, man. I think that was just a bunch of hype talk. I don't think they're changing it.
No, they're going to change it eventually, I think. Because I could. Let me pull that up, by the way. Let's do a quick search.
What is Fort Benning called? Is it? Oh, wait a minute. Did they Oh, wait a minute. No way. They renamed it Fort Moore.
Yeah, that's been that way. I don't call it Fort Moore, though. I mean, if somebody said, I'm going to Fort Moore, I'd be like, where? I'd be like, who?
What?
I'm
Where?
still calling it the other one.
Dude, literally, I think people in the Army would be like that, too. They'd be like, what? Fort Moore? Like, they'd be like, what is that?
Oh, let's see here. I got an update here on the Google Maps situation. It looks like Mexico formally asked Google Maps not to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. They're asking them to reconsider it. So I'm not seeing it directly, but I'm assuming maybe Google's thinking about it first before they change it. Maybe, but I don't see any confirmation of that. So that might explain why it hasn't been changed.
Dude, Mexico put in a counter notification to the name request and said, please don't.
Oh.
And then they're like, we're putting that under review. It's like, huh. Dude, Google is the arbiter of the map now. Like, they get to decide what's what and what it is named. Next thing you know, man, there's going to be, I heard that Mexico stopped us renaming the Gulf. We're going to rename Mexico to Poopy Stinky Land, like, or something like that. Like, they're really big, like, dodo birds. I don't like it, like, or something like that. So, like, and then Mexico's going to go back to Google and be like, please, like, please don't do it. And then Google's be like, I'll think about it, or something like that. But anyways,
They say it's called Google because it's like the equivalent of 1 quadrillion operations a second. I guess that's why we're going to call Google 1 trillion problems and counting.
1 trillion headaches plus another. Like, it's man, we're on a roll tonight. I feel it. Hopefully y'all are getting a laugh out of this. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. I hope we actually did answer the question, and hopefully we got you all a load of laughs too at the same time. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. But a huge thanks once again. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $22 donation. And thank you very much, Cliff, for the $22 support. He said, Operation Baltic Baby. Trucks cross Poland, connect with an old fishing trawler at a small port town on the Baltic coast. Sea baby drones towed out to sea. The Russian Baltic fleet is destroyed. The trawler is scuttled, and rumors fly.
And I thank you for the support. Matthew, do you know what they're talking about, though?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's saying that's an operation that Ukraine is carrying out, or if he's saying that's something that's under consideration. I'm not really sure. I'll be honest. I have not heard of Operation Baltic Baby, so I'm not really sure. I haven't heard of it.
I'd have to say, I thank you for the support, Cliff H. Unfortunately, I haven't heard of anything like that either. If you can clarify that, though, we will circle back, though, and cover that again. But I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that you do enjoy this channel, and I hope that you do enjoy it greatly, because we love to do this, and we love to talk to you folks. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. And guys, I see some people in here. Trying to say that we're getting political here. Hey, look, we joked like this on the last president. A lot of people, apparently we just did that voice so bad people just didn't know it, but we kind of make a shtick out of, like, just joking on whoever's president. It's funny. I mean, it's relevant. Y'all know what we're talking about. Y'all get a laugh out of it. It's not political, though. Want to make that fairly clear, because generally we're equal opportunity at taking shots at presidents. I don't really care what political party they're in. They're funny. So we take shots at them. But by no means is it trying to disparage a president or praise the president in any way. Just want to make that clear, because what do you mean? You forgot about me. Greenland is a frozen island wasteland, ice and snow. like oh, man, only about 65,000 people live here. I mean, come on. Wait, hang on, folks. Hang on here. Hang on. 1 second. Oh, hold up. There we go. All right. And so with that. Oh, my computer, Matthew, is going haywire again. But anyways, with that.
What happened?
It's that fan again. It's making that noise.
Oh dear.
Oh, man. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to none other than Gunfox, who puts in a generous $20 donation. And thank you, Gunfox, as well, for that support and helping to keep us running. And he has a day in history for us all. He said, 12/15/1965, Joint Mission Gemini 6A and 7A, and 6A achieved the first crewed rendezvous with another spacecraft, its sister, Gemini 7. And Gemini 6A was the 5th crewed Gemini flight and the 13th crewed American flight. Also, take a question from the chat.
And look at that. They both met up together. That's pretty neat. Look at that. That's actually pretty cool looking, those primitive spacecraft like that.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like the outside shielding of it. It's very nice.
Man, it's just nice. It's like that tuxedo scheme that Southern Railway had back here in the South during that time. I like it. It's just formal. Black and white as a color scheme just always looks good on everything, really. But nevertheless, I do have to thank you so much for the support, GunFox61, in sharing these days in space history with us. Because folks like you not only help this channel to keep on running and make it possible, but you also help us to learn more about space and things about space history. I don't really know a lot about it, still don't, because crazily enough, we don't have a lot of free time still, and we're just working more and more these days. But still, folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing rolling. And I got to thank you massively for that, because once again, if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't even be able to talk about the amazing feats that the United States conducted in space. And really quickly, let me take this off screen, and let me go check on some Starship news, considering that that's our newest, latest, and greatest. And let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so apparently people are buying Starship debris on like a bidding market now. If anyone's able to recover any, they sell it for thousands of dollars a piece. That would actually be
Thousands a piece?
Thousands a piece. I'm not going to lie, that would be pretty cool to have a souvenir of a piece of a destroyed starship, but thousands of dollars, not necessarily so.
Where'd it crash?
I don't even know.
I need to find out where that crashed. Might have to go down there and scrap up a couple of scraps real quick.
Man, you're going to see Matthew and me on a fishing boat like Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan. Like, or something like that down there in the Gulf. Going, Matthew, I don't think we're going to find any. Then Matthew's up there on the mast. Shut up, Andrew. Keep going straight. You know, like, I see something out there. Like, you know.
You gotta have me like scooting around that ground like Patron the dog sniffing for mines. We'll be down there like literally like a freaking trawler on the ground.
Dude, we just cast a net over the side, just literally harvest the whole thing. So, you know, like we're like De Boers at this point with the diamonds or whatever that company is called, and we're just like controlling the market on spaceship parts and selling them to the public or something like that. That would be interesting, man. That'd be wild thinking about that. But still, you know, it seems as though that's really the big news right now about the Starship program is the one that failed, Starship Flight 7, just a little while ago. People are still talking about that one. Funnily enough, people were talking about how it polluted the atmosphere. It's like, I guess no one's going to talk about the Challenger explosion then, you know? It's like, I guess that one just kind of is overlooked, or any other explosion of a ship for that matter, of that type. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Man, I wonder why that fan makes that noise. It disturbs me, folks, because it's a brand new computer, and one of the fans is making this rattling noise, and that tells me that it might not be aligned properly, or that it's getting out of alignment. And it's like, that shouldn't be happening because this computer's only about a month old. But that's interesting. It's loud, too. Like, I don't know if y'all can hear it.
I can actually hear it when you start talking. Like, when your mic activates on, I can now hear it.
It's getting louder, actually. Like, it's actually kind of, like, bothering me a bit. Because I'm like,
I think the fan might be bad. Luckily, though, the replacement to replace the fan is not too bad, and that should be covered under warranty.
Yeah, I think it should. I was just listening to it, man. It's just like, I'm like, no. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. Thank you so much, Woods Giver Support, GunFox. And with that, speaking of Starship failures, sounds like my computer, my one of the fans might fail. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Andrew Ty said, you should have gotten a PC, dude. No, he did. That's a PC that he's gotten there, by the way. I'm the one who got the Apple, and it's not making any fan noise. In fact, a MacBook has no fan sound at all, unless you hop on some 3D software, maybe like Premiere Pro or something like that with like really intensive graphics. But anyways, we're grabbing that live chat question for GunFox, and this one is going to go to Judy from the live chat, who said, do you think Ukraine will actually be able to get their nukes back?
No, absolutely not. They'll never get their nukes back because all of the nukes that they gave away that weren't completely dismantled were given to Russia. Russia will never, under any circumstances, re-nuclearize Ukraine. So the answer to that generally would be no. If we're talking about Ukraine getting their nuclear weapons that they gave away directly back, will never happen. But they could be given nuclear weapons by someone else. But that also will never happen because I do not believe, unless if something crazy happens, you know, well, I guess they're getting nukes, you know, something like, I don't know if that's going to happen one day, but for now, it seems like that would be highly unlikely, if not impossible at this point, for Ukraine to get nukes from really any direction. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a good question, Judy, a great one right there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Waba, who puts in a 20 as well. And of course, Waba is a longtime channel legend, also who's been around the channel for ages. Old guard, I guess you could say. And thank you very much, Waba, for that support. They said nothing for no reason. That's a double negative right there. That actually cancels each other out.
So it's something for a reason. But I do think
Yeah.
I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, Wubba. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. It is something to us. Every bit of support is, and it helps us to be able to pay our bills and keep the lights on so that way we can keep shows like this running every day. It's not easy being cheesy sometimes, but folks like y'all help it to be a little bit easier to be able to get on by and make it through each and every day and keep doing this as our full-time job. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Santiago Flores, another longtime channel legend who throws in a 20. And thank you very much as well, Santiago, for also helping to keep us running. And they said, good evening, and it's for the coffee fund, and you should check out the Istmo de Tehuantepec project of Mexico to rival the Panama Canal, and cheers.
And I thank you so much for the support. And Matthew, let me look at that. I'm not going to ask you to reread that. I feel like that might be difficult for both of us. Is that sounding like
That's asking too much.
Let's see here. Let me go get this. Oh goodness, where is it? Dang, where did it go? Where is it, man? Oh my
I
goodness.
just put in the live chat. Let me put in the live chat here. Let's see here.
I'm not seeing it
Copy
in the super
paste.
chat list.
There, I put it in the live chat. Add an I to the front of it though, because I actually did not grab the I.
Istmo de Tehuantepec. Okay, Tehuantepec. That sounds like Susquehanna. But anyways, let's see. Tehuantepec. And I know a lot of people are like, this does not sound like Susquehanna, you idiot. Like, it kind of has, like, that same, like, sort of, like, exotic sound to it as Susquehanna, at least to me. And I know a lot of people from Pennsylvania are about to, like, beat me or skin me alive or something for that because they're like, it's the Susquehanna. But, like, I'm not from anywhere around where those rivers have those names. Like, our rivers have names like Coosa or Alabama or the Swanee River, you know, something like that. They're not, like, they're exotic, but they're not, like, that kind of exotic. But anyways, where is this? Ah, yes. Tehuantepec. The town of Tehuantepec. So I'm guessing that's where it is. So let's check it out. Tehuantepec Canal. Let's see here. There was a map. I just saw it, and they took it away from me. They stole it from me. But let's see here. So here it is.
I bet that land that was on that coast right there is pretty nice. That the Playa or whatever it was called right there. Let's see, it's Laguna Superior, Santa Maria del Mar. That looks like it's probably very nice. So it's just like looking at the coast. It looks like the Destin area of Florida.
Man, you said La Playa. I was like, it's a pimp.
Man, the Playa.
Man, let's take a look at this. Oh, look,
Costa
they have
Rica.
Costa Rica. Well, you know, I mean,
yeah,
you know,
well,
it's all right. I mean,
well, you know,
maybe-
you can't judge a book by its cover.
maybe war ravaged a little, but, you know, beyond that, not bad. Let's take a look.
That was the biggest shock I think I've had in a minute on Google Maps.
Let's take a look out here. Well,
Ah, here's the nice one.
look at these folks taking pictures at the beach. Why, this does look nice, actually. This is actually quite nice. Let's see here. Not really a lot of people out of these beaches. Don't know why. Oh, is this a... Oh, my. Perhaps activities
It's
of...
just a sand thing. It's just like, you know, you dig the sand and you do the little snowman thing. What do they call that? A snowman, a sandman? Well, I don't know what you call that.
They just call it a sandcastle, Matthew.
Oh, sandcastle. Yeah, yeah.
A sandman, a snowman. Like, it's...
Oh, they might sell you a mattress on the side too. You know, the Sandman.
Dude, I was about to go Sam Kinison on you, man. There's no snow here. Like, I was about to do that, man. I was like, dude, but still, it doesn't look that bad, or like, at least on the beach. Now, I wouldn't be around Laguna Superior or Santa Maria del Mar. I mean, that's San Francisco, right here in Mexico, and there's no one living here. It's just a swamp.
Man, this San Francisco right here is not the one that most people are familiar with.
I guess you could call that the inferior San Francisco. But
Damn, they got in the lake literally straight up called inferior. That's kind of interesting.
man, I like how they have the town called the 20th of November. That's like the 21st night of September.
Yeah, that might be. And also, there's a Revolution 20 de November over there in the corner.
Over there in the corner.
Yeah, on the right side is Revolution 20 de November.
Oh, the revolution of the 20th of November. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see
look
it.
at that.
And then you got Yerba Santa. That's the Santa that's like from Coachella. He comes around Yerba Santa. You know what I mean? And then you got Coyote Ra. Like you got Coyote Ra. That's when
Iotira.
Nah, man, that's Coyote Ra right there, man. That's when the coyote comes up and it like growls at you. He goes rah. You know what I mean? You know. But hey, maybe that joke falls flat. I don't know.
Oh, yawning.
Oh, dang, dude. Bro, don't yawn on air. Like,
Man, I was trying to keep it quiet, man, but you were asking for a reaction.
man, honestly, though, respectfully, I sorry. But beyond that, man, honestly, oh, Azteca, that's got to be a cool town. Let's take a look. Oh, look, someone took a picture of their Philips TV and they were playing a game. All right, well, that's neat, I suppose. Not really a lot to see in Azteca, really. Not really a lot to see anywhere around here. But nevertheless, this is the plan for the canal and highway kind of thing. It's not really a canal. But what it is, it's a railway corridor from Salina Cruz to Coatzacoalcos. Wait, hang on. Let me make sure I get that right. Coatzacoalcos. I hope I'm getting that right. I know I'm getting it wrong. But that is a railway highway corridor that the Mexicans want to build across this area. It's the thinnest part of Mexico, so it'd kind of be the easiest one to do it. But I actually went through this a little while ago. It's a great question, though. We went through this, I think, on Sunday. I don't think it's a good idea because offloading that cargo onto trucks or trains and then transporting it across this area is going to be fairly expensive. A lot more expensive than just going through the canal. So for that reason, as long as the canal has water, which it generally always will have water, even if it's decreased amount these days, the canal will be a much more marketably competitive option than this kind of a passage. At least in my opinion. And I'm not an economic expert, but generally offloading and onloading cargo and then doing the same process on the other coast will add a lot more to the cost of transporting that stuff. So for that reason, may not be as good as just paying the passage fee to get through the canal. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Also, Matthew, let's go look at the old town of Coatzacoalcos. Yeah, that sounds right. And also there's a river here. Well, why not when they just build a canal with a river? Why not just, where does this river go? Yeah, why not just widen the river through this area and then dig a canal the rest of the way? Seems like an easy option to me. I don't know. Might be stupid. But anyways, let's take a look at this town. Yes. Portland, Oregon. Looks a lot like it for some reason.
Somewhat, a little bit.
Look at this oil derrick.
Interesting.
Man, let's see here. The lampposts
I
are
like
painted
that.
pink.
Sort of like a traditional sort of town.
Very, very, like, it's classic. Like, these buildings are, like, from the 50s. Let's see here. They have this statue, most likely a statue of some... that might be actually of the French intervention in Mexico, like the second one. They also have a pier. Oh, wow, that one's got a giant statue on top of it of a lizard or maybe a bird. Can't really tell. Also, that thing's got one hell of a flat tail, dude. Like, that thing could do some damage with that. Like, geez.
Man, get that thing sweeping with that tail.
Man, nah, man. They use that thing as a hammer some nails or something. You know what I mean? Like, dang. Let's see. They have another statue.
Oh,
Dude,
what the hell?
Dude, that bird is tweaking, man. That bird's got human legs and is wearing trousers. Like, I don't think that's normal for birds.
Man, I'm just saying that is a sus like statue thing right there. That gives off a way different vibes than I think they were going for with that.
Geschlecht van Leichman. Like, it's like,
what the hell's going on?
Whoa. But let's see here. Let's see. There's that pyramid again. This one's small too, by the way, man. It's like surprisingly small.
Yeah, it really is. Like, yeah, look at that person right there crawling up the stairs.
Yeah.
That thing's like a miniature thing.
Dude, these were the Aztecians that like traveled away from I never can get the name right, but pretty much Mexico City in the Aztec form, and they went to the coast and they were like, man, we're poor. And then they're like, I know what to do. We'll build a pyramid, but small. And then they built like this tiny pyramid. Like, dude, I bet you, if the emperor of the Aztec Empire came out here, they'd be like, look, we built a pyramid in your honor. He'd be like, is this a pyramid for ants or something like that? He's like, this is just small, like, or something. But still, it's interesting for sure. This actually, Tonks. This is the other half of TikTok.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing. This is what happens when TikTok's forced to divest. One part becomes a restaurant called Tox, and the other part is Tix, a treatment center.
That's a treatment for Tourette's. Like it's Tix is that. Tox is just a clothing store or an odds and ends store, I suppose.
If you combine them together, again, you get a Chinese propaganda app.
When you combine them together, you know what you get, Matthew? You get Kia Motors.
How come that Kia dealership's nicer than ones we got in America? That's like a Lamborghini dealership for Kia.
I know, right? Like it's like, what the hell's going? You know what? We need to do a check, Matthew. We need to do a grocery store check. Where in the world is the supermarket? We'll know it when we see it because it'll have the hot dog. There we go. There we go. That's exactly what we're looking for. There we go. Hot dog man. Hey.
Hot dog man.
What is that?
Okay. That's that thing.
Why is this one terrified?
I'm not even really sure what those are. They kind of look like a dog or something.
Kind of look like eggs. Like, oh, dude, wow. Actually, this actually looks pretty decent right here. They got that panaderia, which is just...
They got that Toto Po for $3.35.
You said that in the most redneck way that we could have said that to you. You said, they got that damn Toto Po out of here. Like, it's like...
You do, man. I'm not even sure what the hell that translates to, but it sounds like it could be good.
Natural
Chips?
Sazonado. Huh, so there's options here. Huh.
We got options.
We got options. We got options here. So these are the meats. This is the meat section. We can tell because it has meats up there on the sign. I can't read Spanish that well. I actually did take a Spanish class just so I can't read it well. But man, this is honestly like a Costco, dude. You know, when you look at what they have, like it's almost the same thing.
They got that all the margarine that we've got.
Yeah,
Iberia.
Man, Iberia. That's that peninsula that Spain and Portugal is on. Exotic. What are these? Ponds.
Pond 5. You know, that's a good place where I think you can get stock footage from.
Yeah, I think so. What is this?
Is that doner?
Dude, is that a doner kebab? Like, is it in the middle of the store? Dude, that's actually pretty cool. I would eat that. Like, I would actually...
Why is it like sitting out in like the Lowe's lawn and garden section? They're cooking up the kebab. Like it's in the wrong section. Also, there's somebody like cooking it right there. They're moving away like a ghost.
No, he's got the jacklift with him. He's just walking by.
Okay. Nobody's watching it. Then it's just cooking.
Man, let him cook. We're sitting here like observing this. Someone in that story would be like, "Look, asshole, we're trying to eat here. All right, you want some or not? Like, but anyways." Dude, they honestly have a lot. Practically, it's like nothing but American products. Dude,
I'm just saying, like, for some reason, like, I think this is like a misconception about the grocery stores and also the availability of products down there. Is a lot of people assume that it's not good selection, or either they don't have a wide variety of stuff for whatever reason. And I'm kind of shocked. Like every time you look at them, they're as well stocked as any other store around the world. It's no issue at all.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I think we're gonna have to hurry up the stream because the fan over here is now like it sounds like there's rocks in the fan. So I don't know if you can hear it, but I think we're going to have to hurry this thing up because this computer is not really doing too well. So
have you tapped on the fan like the outside? Have you tapped it?
Yeah, I'm tapping on it right now.
Give it a little knock. Like don't bang it, just knock it.
Nope, it's not stopping. It just keeps going.
Interesting. It must have a fault in the temperature sensor, and it's spooling the fan up for no reason. Or maybe the CPU's overheating. You never really know.
I would doubt that because the air coming out of that fan is cool. Like, it's very cool. Like, on the old computer...
I hear it now, man. It sounds like a blender.
Yeah, it's getting bad. Oh, maybe it's dying down. Wait, I think it gave up.
Did it die, or did it stop?
Let's watch. Let's watch. Hold on, folks. Hold on. It looks like it's calming down. It's not dying. It's still going.
Damn,
okay, now it's
still going.
It's now down to a nice, good idling. Sounds like some gravel on a good road, but yeah, it sounds like it's fine now. So we're going to get back to getting through the questions. Hate to say this, folks. I think I am going to have to speed it up and round out the stream a little early. So that way my little computer here can not have to be, like put down like old Yeller. Oh, wait a minute. Stop. Oh, we're good. Okay, so with that, we're on to the next one.
That must indicate it's a fault with the fan or something, or either it's getting a wrong input maybe from the temperature sensor. That might be what it is, or I don't really know. Like usually it's controlled, I believe, by the CPU. I think I'm not really sure, but we can check that stuff later, see what the temperatures are reading. But our next super chat here goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 20, and of course LSA Sergeant Figment is a longtime channel legend as well, and we appreciate that support. And he says, now that the restrictions have been lifted, what is the likelihood that the Kerch Bridge will be destroyed? And do you think this was not an approved target before? And also, shout out to the boys of the 35th. I'm Israel Chai.
Hey, and a shout out to the 35th. A big thanks to you once again for the support, LSA Sergeant Pigman. Oh, it's kind of stirring up again. Big shout out to you once again, though, for the support. And to answer your question, I don't think the Kerch Bridge is going to be hit. It probably was an approved target beforehand. It's just that it's been so well defended, I just don't really think that's the chance anymore. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to John Person, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much as well, John, for the support. And he says, thanks so much for your commitment to objective journalism and evidence-based reporting. And it sets a wonderful example in LSA.
And thank you so much for the support. Man, legitimately, I think you might want to come back here and hear this thing because it's...
I'm going to come back there and listen to it while you answer that question.
Yeah, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, thank you so much for the kind words because it means a lot that folks like you enjoy this channel and help us to keep this thing rolling. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible. And now that you're back here, Matthew, it literally stopped as soon as you were coming back. But it's getting to the point that it's insane. It's like insanely loud. Matthew's in here right now. Yeah, it's that one. It's this one exactly. Oh, I tapped it harder than that, man. I gave it a couple of good taps. 1 second, y'all. We're trying to do some quick, like, problem solving. You can hear it now. It's, like, starting to get going again. Hold up, y'all. We're doing the solution of just hitting the computer all over. This is a very Alabama sort of a technological principle. It should fix the machine. And I've just been told by Matthew, we've been given the all clear. It appears that the computer will be able to function, at least at a bare minimum, for some time. So with that, I got to say, thank you so much once again for support, and thank you for the kind words. We always love to know that folks enjoy this channel and love to see it running, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it going. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh, I'm telling you, I get no respect. I went back there to check on the computer, and the computer was having glitches. When I walked back there, it turned off and went away. It ran off. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect. But
Oh, man.
anyways, I think my new diagnosis is you have a loose screw or something like that that holds one of the fans into place, because when I knocked on it, it slowly stopped, but it came back slightly. So I think it actually might be a problem with maybe one of the screws holding it down, or maybe a bearing or something like that in the fan. That could be it. Maybe not a temperature issue at all, which would be a better case scenario, because luckily, if it's just what I'm thinking it is, it's not going to be an issue with your computer. It's just a obnoxious sound that's going to make for now.
Well, I know one thing for sure, Matthew. It's not that the computer's getting hot, because on the old computer, I knew it was getting hot because I'd have the control room open and it'd be saying that everything's maxing out, and I'd hold up my hand next to the out vent, with the air being pushed out, and it would be hot. Like, it would actually be hot. Like, the back of the computer would be hot. I'm touching around on the back of this one, and nothing's hot. It's all either like room temperature or the air coming out is cool. So I know that's not the computer. It's that fan has some kind of an issue of some kind. LG China said it's not a fan of the Enforcer. That was a good one. That was actually a pretty good one. But anyways, hopefully we'll be able to fix this. We'll have to find something here to fix this with. But beyond that, crazily enough, Britt Barlow and also Trism 666 both ruined massive $100 super chats right then and there. So sorry about that, everyone, that we didn't get to catch those as soon as they came in, because we were trying to deal with the IT issue here. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so getting to those massive super chats that just came in, we're going to grab the first one here and then get to our second one. The first one goes to Trism 666, who puts in that $100 donation. And huge shout out to you, Trism, for once again choosing to support the channel and helping to keep us running yet again. And they said the fan fund. Hey, that's double meaning. They're fan and they want the fan funded. But they said thanks again for the great information and LSA.
Hey, thank you so much for your support, Trism 666, and thank you for supporting the Fan Fund. We love the fans. We don't like this one in the computer, though. This is a different kind of a fan. Not a big fan of it. Oh, see, I can do it too, but cheesier. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for support, Trism666, and helping this channel to keep on running. That is massive support and helps us to keep this thing rolling. And hopefully we'll be able to find a fix to this computer. We've got so many things going on. If y'all knew how many things were happening all at the same time. And then on top of that, we have all these projects we're working on. Like I'm composing music with a composer. And then also I have to go and get my Panama video ready. I still have to try and get it ready as quick as I can. And then there's a whole other bunch of things going on in the background that's forcing us to pretty much sleep on the floor on air mattresses where we're getting like no sleep. But hey, it's fine. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for support Trism666 and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be fortunate enough to be here on the stream, which is the bright part, the best part of every single day. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than Britt Barlow, who's also a longtime channel legend, but they threw in their first ever super chat on the channel, and huge thanks to you, Britt, for that massive $100 support, and that is extremely generous, and of course, like I said, a longtime channel legend, by the way, so we appreciate that support, and also we appreciate you being here for such a long time as well, and I do not see a comment attached to it, but thank you very much, Britt, for the support. Sadly, nothing to address. There was no comment left, but Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you massively for the support, Britt Barlow, your first super chat ever. And I gotta thank you so much for being around this channel for quite some time and supporting it and helping it to keep on running. I know for sure that you're an old guard in the channel legend. I've remembered your name being here for as long as I can ever recall. And I gotta thank you so much for supporting the channel massively for the first time ever, because you're helping this channel tonight to be possible, helping us to keep our lights on and pay our bills. And I gotta thank you massively for that, because if it was not for folks like all of y'all who went out of y'all's way to support a channel that y'all don't have to support, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't have been able to make it possible for hell years at this point, which is a really crazy thing to think about. But still, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to BB63 Gunner, who puts in the 20. And thank you very much as well, good sir, for that support and also helping to keep us running. And we appreciate that very much. I do not see a comment attached to it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much for the support. May not be a comment attached to it, but that support says a lot in itself. And I got to thank you massively once again for supporting the channel and helping it to keep on running. And of course, we're happy to have you here tonight. And we're so happy to know that you've been enjoying it massively enough to help us to keep it rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Hokey Redneck, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much as well, Hokey, for also throwing in the second support of the night, and we appreciate it very much from Hokey. He said, what the hell is El Salvador offering to take our violent criminals?
Oh, no, they're not offering to take our violent criminals. They're offering to take pretty much, well, basically the best way I can explain it, I don't know if people are going to take this political or not, but this is the technical explanation. They're offering to take illegal immigrants who have a criminal record. So they're technically not American citizens, because American citizens being extradited to El Salvador, there's a lot of constitutional things the Supreme Court would shoot down there. But as far as illegal aliens, they're technically largely supposed to be there's two things that can happen. Either they can be deported, or they can serve some form of a prison sentence here in the U.S. for the crime they committed. The United States is trying to deport these illegal aliens with criminal records in the United States back to whatever country they originally originated from. Problem is, some of those countries do not want to take them, and they also have to figure out what countries they came from, and also eventually find a way to repatriate them to that country. So in the meantime, they have to put them somewhere. So they can either put them, here are the options at this point: Guantanamo Bay or nowhere. That's really what we're seeing at this point. So with this in mind, it appears that El Salvador is offering its services with the mega prison that it has somewhere down around here. Let me see if I can go find it real quick for y'all. It should be down here somewhere. Am I thinking of the wrong place? You can see it from space. I mean, it's a fairly sizable facility. Let's see here. Wait a minute, is it out here somewhere? Here it is. This is the Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, which is it's the confinement center for terrorists. That's the actual name. It's called SECOT, and it is a massive mega prison. This thing is insane. It's maximum security, the whole thing is, and apparently from what we understand, it's not up to full capacity, so the El Salvadorians are offering to take the folks that we're trying to deport and hold them here temporarily until we can find a way to repatriate them to wherever they come from. But I'm sure that there is some sort of an exchange involved in that. So they'll do that for us if we do something for them. Don't really know what that is yet, but that's the offer that's being floated right now on the table from what I'm understanding. So I hope that answers that well, just in case you're wondering why that's the case. I don't really know a lot of details about it, but just using kind of like diplomatic common sense, that would be about the best answer I could give to that kind of a question. Also, Hokey Redneck said, it looks like a camp to me. Technically, it kind of is. Like, that's really what this thing is. They just put a load of folks in here. They really don't get to control anything in their lives anymore. Their lives are supervised 24/7 by guards that are standing on a grate above them on the next floor. And they're standing on a grate, so that way, if any of these prisoners ever get out of control, they can pretty much just blast them on the spot. That's kind of the theory, at least. You don't really hear a lot about Sekot or what goes on in there. It's very quiet, very secretive, which a lot of human rights groups have brought up as kind of a bit of a serious concern, but that's still apparently part of their offer at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, though. Not really going to get into the whole side of whether I agree or disagree with that, but I hope that does explain at least the offer that El Salvador is giving, at least at this moment, and everything else involved with it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. And man, that fan is beginning to act up again. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next one here, this one is going to go to, let's check, this one goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much as well, Scott, for that support, and also to helping to keep us running yet again. And Scott says, great job, guys, and you're a vital link in my life.
And thank you so much for the kind words. And thank you for saying that we're a vital link in your life. We love to know that we're always able to give people a nice place to go to where things are enjoyable. The jokes are hopefully good, not too corny. And if they're corny, hopefully they're corny enough that they're funny. And I got to thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel because it really means a lot that we're able to give folks a nice place to go to and listen to some news and have some camaraderie with folks. Something that some people don't really have, really. You know, sometimes sometimes folks you know, or folks that are supposed to be nice to you aren't. And we generally understand a lot of folks with where they're coming from on that kind of a deal. So we're happy to know that we're able to give you all a kind of a place where, at least for a couple hours every day, y'all can come in and hear the news. It won't be emotionally overbearing. Y'all get to have a laugh with us and a laugh with everyone else too. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Jenna Tolls. I said the whole thing. Thank you very much, Jenna, for that $20 support and helping to keep us running. And they said, Super Chat's probably the best 2 words ever written together. It's so good. Here it's ring. Super, then chats.
And I suppose so. I think your support. Super chats are great for us because it helps us to keep on air. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make it possible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and a huge thanks for you for throwing in the support and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Dustin Thompson, who puts in the 20. And thank you very much, Dustin, as well, for the support. He said, how close are we to the big 3? And I assume you're talking about World War III, is I believe what the question is. And honestly, Dustin, Zelensky came out today. We didn't cover this in the news on the stream tonight, but Zelensky came out and said that World War III has already started, and we've been in it for several months, because he's saying that North Korea is leading the charge, Iran's also leading it, along with Putin, who's the headmaster of the whole thing, and China is basically bankrolling the whole situation from the shadows. So Zelensky believes it's already started. For me, I would say I'm on the fence about it. I think that it could be right around the corner, like an actual hot war. But if Zelensky's talking about a Cold War, we're certainly in that. Like, this is probably more tense than the Cold War got at this point, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would largely have to say that, in my opinion, we're kind of getting close to World War III. I don't think we're there yet, but we're probably closer to it now than we've been for several decades at least. But saying that we're already in World War III is a bit of a stretch, because yes, North Korea is involved, but that's it. You know, it's like there's really no one else, and that doesn't really constitute a world war, because, hell, if that's the case, that means that the, let me think here, what would that war have been called? I think it was called the Crimean War. Yeah, that would have been a world war, because Britain and France were involved in fighting Russia, and also Turkey was involved as well. So technically that could have been called a world war at that point, but it doesn't really, you know, meet the standards. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Verna Weeks, who puts in a $13 donation. And thank you very much as well, Verna, for that support and helping to keep us running. And they said, for the big laser. And thanks for the music, always. And no, I don thanks for the music, always. No, I don't.
And I thank you so much for your support. I thank you for enjoying the music. I love making the music. I think it's a wonderful, fun thing to do. And I love to know that all of y'all enjoy it so much. And I really love the way the kind of like the workers of America kind of a segment went. That's what I call it in the background, but I call it like a tribute to the citizens, because saying the workers of America kind of has like a commie ring to it a little bit, although to be honest, that's what it is. It's really celebrating all of you folks that get to work out there. So I'm just going to call it that. I mean, it's not commie or anything. It just kind of sounds like a little, what do you mean, Jack? But I really love the workers of America segment, and I really like showing off everything that y'all do because, people always make it sound mundane. You go work on a farm, you work in a steel mill, you drive a train or fly a plane, it's just what it is. A lot of people act like that, but there is more to it than that. There always is more to it, because each and every little part of what everyone does adds together to make America what it is. And that's what I wanted to get through in that music video, is that y'all should be proud of what you all do. Every single one of y'all plays your part and plays your role in the United States every day. Even folks like janitors, who people just crap on all the time. Even to this day, people act like janitors are nobodies. Janitors are as important as really anyone else in this country. They conduct a vital service and play an important role in making sure that this nation operates at its peak efficiency every day. And I wanted to make sure that that kind of a little music video there really exemplified something like that and made you all proud of what you do and what part you make up in this country. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And also, I just received this news. The CIA is now offering buyouts to all of its employees. For some reason, I didn't get one. That's because I'm not in the CIA.
Dude,
But...
I was about to be like,
Man,
what do you mean we didn't get one? Like, what?
That's kind of interesting, actually. Apparently, this is according to Unusual Whales on Twitter. The CIA has offered buyouts to all employees. That's very, very interesting. Very fascinating. I'm not sure what to make of that, to be perfectly honest with you. So, interesting.
Very
What do you
interesting.
think, Enforcer?
A buyout. That's a little interesting.
Meaning they're gonna basically buy them out of their employment, I guess. Or that's the way I'm interpreting it.
Is that really a good thing? Like, I know that a lot of people don't really like the CIA, but the CIA also does things that are important, like intelligence gathering, which has really helped us out a lot in the Ukraine war. It's like, is it really good to just offer buyouts to everyone? Or it's like, should we really be trying to pick specific departments? It's like, I feel like it would be better if specific departments were picked, because we really just don't want folks buying themselves out of, say, foreign intelligence or anything like that. That wouldn't really be a great thing to see a diminishing of,
I wonder what the buyout rate is at this point. I don't have that information, but I wonder what the buyout rate looks like, because I'm assuming they're giving up. Some of them are probably giving up their retirement, I would imagine. So I guess they're giving them a lump sum payout, is the way I'm interpreting it. I'm not really familiar with the way the government employment system works, but maybe that's the way it works. I just don't understand why they'd be offering buyouts to all CIA employees. If that is an accurate report, that means field officers, targeters, analysts. A bunch of people are on the chopping block, which is I don't really understand that.
I'm not really understanding it a lot either. I'll generally be honest with y'all. Like, this is going to seem a little weird. It's not really political. I'm kind of pro bureaucrat. Like, to be entirely honest, because a lot of people don't really understand how much the U.S. government's bureaucracy is at play every day in ways that really matter. Like, a lot of people will look at things that people find to be an annoyance, like the EPA, and they'll complain about it. But that's also the reason why pollution isn't as bad as in this country as it used to be, which we went into a lot in a rabbit hole about a week ago or so and talked about how bad it was. And other groups inside of the government, like, for example, the Food and Drug Administration, do things that you'll never even think about. Back in the day, before the Food and Drug Administration existed, at the beginning of the last century, food was just adulterated beyond belief. And in the food world, that doesn't mean what it means normally. It means that the food's been tampered with in a bad way. So, for example, bread could have some pretty nasty stuff in it, like sweat, For example, that was fairly common to have sweat in your bread. Another thing that was fairly common as well is to have arsenic in your peas. Not a lot of it, but there was still arsenic in every can of peas for the large part, because crazily enough, arsenic reacts with peas to make them greener. And of course, everyone likes greener peas; they look healthier. So they would just start lapping these things up with arsenic to make them greener. And of course, everyone knows that arsenic isn't good for you; it's a poison. But that's what the FDA ensures these days doesn't happen, and it requires a pretty decently sized bureaucracy in the FDA, just in that one federal agency, to do it. So going through and saying all of these bureaucracies are overinflated and stuff, and really just trying to slash them down to skeletal crews, like in some bureaucracies, maybe that would make sense, maybe sometimes, but not for all of them, because you could start to see that things that never really have been a problem in this country begin to reemerge, because the bureaucracies and the federal agencies that were there that used to deal with that aren't really there anymore. So people get to get away with more stuff and do more things that aren't necessarily great for the public or their health, or other things for that matter. So with
Also,
that,
get this. I'm told from Hokey Redneck that, for example, if you're making $160,000 a year, which is a fantastic salary, by the way, you'd have to be at the top of your employment wherever you are in the government. They would give you $750,000 to quit on estimate. And that's a buyout. So I'm assuming they get to keep their pension, is the way I'm understanding that. Plus, they get a buyout. I'm not sure if that's because they're trying to avoid any future employment type lawsuits, where they sue over getting fired without cause or something like that. But whatever the case is, that's kind of wild. That's a lot of money. I wonder how many people are going to end up taking that and just heading out.
also, I see someone asking a question. Someone said, "Jesus Christ, why are humans so stupid? Arsenic and peas to make them greener." As the fan runs wild again. Talk about MR. I don't know what MR is, but stuff like that happened a lot. Like, I didn't even cover a lot about bread, but bread was adulterated in all kinds of ways. People would, because another thing that a lot of people don't know is that bread is heavily regulated, especially in other countries. In America, it was still regulated a good bit. And so, dang, man, it's doing it again. Oh, and it just stopped. That's weird. I wonder why it keeps doing that. Anyways, bread would have chalk added to it, because bread loaves had to be a specified weight throughout most of history. The United States, much like other countries, but we had more lax laws, had bread laws, and those laws specifically pertain to the production of bread. So a bread had to be a certain weight, like a loaf of bread had to be a certain weight every time. So during the earlier part of America's history, just after the Revolutionary War, flour was actually pretty expensive, because most of our flour at that time was imported from Britain, crazily enough. So what bakers in the United States would do is that they get chalk and they'd add it to the bread, well, really like the dough, so that way it would be heavier when it was finally baked. That way, they could still meet that weight quota and not get fined, but that could, of course, start to have unintended health effects, especially if someone's just eating chalk in large amounts and they don't know it, because most people's diets consisted of nothing but bread back then. And then another thing that folks used to do later on in the Victorian era was to add alum. And alum, oh, it's nasty. Like, it just screws your brain up. It's pretty much that, what's that stuff, Matthew, that's in deodorant these days? Those metallic things that could cause Alzheimer's. What's that called?
It's like, let's see here. It's like aluminum dioxide or something like that.
It's kind of like alum is pretty much something along the lines of aluminum dioxide, something along those lines, very similar.
But that's not proven, by the way. Like the deodorant thing, that's not proven. I think that's just like a conspiracy theory or something that causes issues, but that's not proven.
Interesting. But nevertheless, alum would cause issues. They know that for sure, because alum had some kind of metals in it that actually would travel, once you consumed it, into your brain, and it would start to pretty much destroy your brain over time as you continue to eat more of this stuff. And it was just bad. It looked like bread. It felt like bread. It tasted kind of like bread, but it was terrible for you. It was toxic. So a lot of people would add that, and you're probably thinking, why? Why would they do this kind of crazy stuff? It was either to make sure that they could keep up with the laws while skirting around it, or it was to cut down on costs, because alum pretty much looked a lot like normal flour when it was cooked, baked into a bread. So they would do that because alum was a lot cheaper, but also, it really was just cheaper. It made them more money, but it also caused massive amounts of unintended side effects for the people consuming it. And so that was always a huge issue. And really, every food category was adulteration of food products. And that's why not Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who was the 32nd president of the United States, came forward with the Food and Drug Act, and that's why the Food and Drug Administration exists. And that's one of those government bureaucracies that's incredibly important. Another one, there's so many that people don't know about. Like, for example, the U.S. Forestry, I believe it's the U.S. Forestry Commission or something. Oh,
I heard that, man. It sounded like an electric saw.
yeah, dude. I don't know what's going on with that. I think the computer's giving it bad inputs because that's the fan. That's not like a screw or anything like that.
Maybe it'll overload it in a minute and cause the motor to burn out, which would be the best case scenario to shut the thing up.
Maybe. But that wouldn't be the best case scenario for filtration of the air in that. There it goes again. Oh.
Oh my god, man. That thing sounds like a freaking chainsaw.
Oh, it just stopped. And the air's still coming out and the fan's still running. I think it just revved itself into being fine. Like, no
Maybe,
noise
like,
at all now.
I'm just, that's crazy, honestly. Like, I see people are hearing this, like, what the hell happened to it?
Anyways, getting back to the adulteration, stuff like that's big. The National Forestry Commission also does a lot of important things as well. I mean, there's so many little government bureaucracies that a lot of y'all have not heard about that do vital things that keep this country running that most of y'all never see or hear about. So cutting down bureaucracies just because you never heard of them might not be the best idea for the national longevity, because once you get rid of those organizations, you have to build them from the ground up again, and a lot of the experience and knowledge that they had from being such a long-lasted bureaucracy will be lost, and it all has to be relearned, and that efficiency has to be built up again after time. So I'll be entirely honest with y'all, I'm generally pro-bureaucracy in most instances. So whenever I hear, entire government agencies are just being slashed, not only are a lot of those people losing jobs for good, also Matthew's here again. The fan doesn't make any noise now. Say hello to everyone on my microphone.
Oh, hello.
Here he is.
I'm currently looking for a wire touching the fan like the audience is saying.
It would be this one right here, this fan. I'm not seeing any there touching it. There's one up there that's kind of close, but it's not touching it. And see, it's not making any noise now. It stopped. I think it literally over-revved itself into being fine. And the air's coming out, so it's working.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know what to make of it.
It's the Russians.
Yeah, it's the Russians, man. It's the Russians. But anyways, I hope that does address that deal fairly well with where I'm coming from with that. At least in my opinion, because I generally see a lot of value in bureaucracies like that. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to, also someone said totally different sound when Matt talks through Andrew's microphone. Yes, because we're using different microphones now, so I have a little bit of a different one. It sounds a little bit different.
Matthew's is higher quality, by the way, just to let y'all know. His is better sounding than mine, but go ahead, Matthew.
Honestly, though, Discord takes away all the advantage of my microphone because it compresses the audio and ruins the quality, so you can't even really tell the difference in my mic that much, to be honest. But when I'm on a video, you can clearly hear it's very, very good quality. But jumping on to our next one here, this one goes to Michael Thomas, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Michael, for the support as well. And he says, what percentage of Ukraine's natural resources has Russia taken?
A fairly decent bit, actually, because most of the natural resources, at least in terms of iron, and also I believe some petroleum, is inside of the Donbass. So there's a fairly decent amount that actually is under Russian occupation at this point, but there's also a large amount that's still under Ukrainian control throughout the remainder of the country. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and also I see people mentioning stuff here about the USPS rejecting packages from China and Hong Kong. I heard about that earlier as well, which actually might present a problem with our merch store, at least a small problem that we might not be able to figure out super quickly. So that was interesting. That was sort of disturbing to hear that. I'm not really sure why that was the case. I think they said sanctions or something about the tariffs, but I don't understand why that would cause the USPS not to carry mail. So somewhat interesting. But anyways, jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Robert Johnson, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Robert, for that support. He said, thank you for a great job and well done.
And thank you so much for enjoying the work we do. And thank you for saying well done. Thank you for the kind words. It really does mean a lot to us. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Christopher Simmons, who puts in a 5. And he says, take a question from the chat, and long live the LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And what do we got from the live chat, Matthew?
So this one from the live chat is going to go to Philip V. LSA, who says, does Ukraine have the ability to make their own nuclear weapons?
Technically, yes. Like, they actually could make nuclear weapons fairly quickly. They have nuclear fuel. They have the ability to enrich nuclear fuel, and generally, with that in mind, they also have the ability to really create a nuclear bomb. It doesn't really take that much to move on into creating a nuclear bomb from creating enriched nuclear fuel of any kind. So the answer is yes, they actually could make one fairly easily. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And someone named Wanted just said, "Shut up. To who? To whom does the bell toll?" They got banned. But anyways, also thank you, Walter A. Lakota, for correcting me. The U.S. Forestry Department, which is what it's called, thank you for clarifying that, is now the Department of Interior. Really? Wait a minute, it is? Oh, hold up. U.S. Forestry. Oh, no, I think I was talking about the U.S. Forestry Service. This still does exist, right? It does. It was formed 120 years ago. I think the Department of the Interior, let's see, Department of the Interior is a different government department. Also, look at that, man. They got a buffalo on that thing.
They sure do, man. That buffalo right there has been stenciled on.
Man, this thing also looks like it's like tweaking, man. Like it's going, something like that. Like it's going crazy. Like it just lost all of its money in Bitcoin. But what? Ew. The flag of the Department of the Interior is terrible. I don't like that.
Whoa! I don't like it.
I like the flag of the U.S. Forest Service though.
Yeah, I like that one. That one is nice.
It honestly has like a Boy Scouts feel to it. Really, like it looks nice though. I like it. But let's see. It's an agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture, actually, which also has its own symbol. This is probably one of the better ones, honestly. And also, it has its own flag, which actually does look pretty good. Like, I'm not going to lie, that's not a bad one.
They have wheat piled up in a big pile in the center of it.
Man, they have a whole bushel of wheat and a plow. Agriculture is the foundation of manufacture and commerce. They're not wrong. Just manufacture, not manufacturing. Just manufacture.
Manufacturing. I hadn't heard a lot of manufacturing with agriculture. I'm just being honest.
Man, so what are you manufacturing out here? Food. That's something like that. I don't know. It's like, but still, fairly interesting rabbit hole here. Government bureaucracies are very interesting. You could honestly make documentaries all day about what they do and the different things that they specialize in. But they're really neat once you start to learn about them. But anyways, with that, thank you, though, Walter A. Lakota, for throwing in some advice there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next super chat. This one goes to Richard Hawkins, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Richard Hawkins, for also being a longtime supporter of the channel. And we appreciate you as well very much. And Richard said, thanks for keeping it real. And tonight, politics trying to take over the channel. It's USDA Forest Service.
And thank you so much for the support, Richard Hawkins. And politics is never going to take over this channel. Sure, we make a joke from time to time, but we'll never really get into domestic politics ever. Ew, no, absolutely not. I don't really like it when I see other people doing it. And also, it's everywhere at this point. It's like, do I really have to tell y'all something like of a domestic political opinion? Or I'll hear it from like 90 other places. So it's like, what's the point of me adding to that crowd of voices? I don't see one. I don't see one at all. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. This is folks like you who make this thing a reality. And so a huge thanks once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Stephen Thompson. Yeah, I believe that's his second support of the night, actually. He puts in a 15 and says, thank you, guys.
And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Stephen Thompson, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. So a big thank you to you as well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Dave BGKY, who puts in a 5 and says, do you believe the new U.S. policy will cause Putin to be overthrown?
I don't think he'll be overthrown, but he's going to be angered, like for sure. But I think eventually he will be overthrown. It's just that I think this is one of the stepping stones to get to that point. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 5 and says, I predict that the Crimea Bridge will be the first target to go.
I wonder if it will be. Maybe it will. We'll have to wait and see, because I'm thinking that they're probably going to keep striking into western Russia, up around the Voronezh-Bryansk area, but they may hit the Kerch Bridge, possibly. And that would be interesting to see if they actually did and succeeded at it. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Steve, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Steve. He said, Russia is losing out on their most needed natural resource for the war machine, copium.
That was a good one. That was a good one. The build up and the delivery, the finish, amazing right there. Amazing. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I saw someone say, and we get this question quite a bit actually, because a lot of people think that once the Ukraine war is over, the channel is going to die. I saw someone say, what will the channel do when the war is over? And once again, we are a news channel in general. We started off covering Ukraine because that was the main thing happening, but slowly morphed into world news. And our still primary focus is the Ukraine war because we, of course, run a ton of fundraisers for Ukraine and help them out. But we also cover all the other conflicts around the world, like, for example, the Middle East, where things are really popping off crazy. We also cover some things in America. We cover things in Europe and also China and that region as well. So there's plenty to cover. And also, we are working now on documentary videos, which we're releasing one by one. And those will always have like an audience to watch those, always, all the time, because they're informative, but they're not necessarily connected to exact events happening at the exact time. So the channel will always be around, by the way. Like, just because the Ukraine war ends doesn't mean the channel is ending, because the channel is just not about just the Ukraine war, even though right now it's the primary focus because it's the biggest thing going on. But Enforcer, I know you want to add in on that one, so I'll let you take it away.
Oh yeah, we're not going to be going away once the war ends, because that's been something that we were asked really since the start, really since the first months of the war, and also no problem at all things space. We were happy to address the question. I saw you earlier saying, "Can you please acknowledge me?" or something like that. I was like, "Sure, why not? We'll do that later." And so your time is now, and so I hope that you are enjoying that. We're talking directly to you and your question, but. Beyond that, we've been getting that question since the beginning of the war, and that actually has been a bit of a question, especially at the start, as to what we were going to do if the war did end. And so I was telling Matthew way back then, I was like, well, probably would be a good thing for us to eventually shift on over into world news, so that way people don't just know us as the Ukraine war channel, and we're just anchored to that alone, but we can keep on running our business as a world news channel, so that way y'all can still get news. It's just that when the Ukraine war ends, most of it will be about other stuff, not Ukraine. So that's largely what we've kind of already done. Not actually, it was a lot quicker than we ever planned on doing it, because so many things started to happen around the world all the time. It really just made it to where that was required, and that was about 8 months ago, 9 months ago. We were really planning on doing that once it became clear the war was coming to an end. But, you know, with no end in the war in sight and us already moving on into world news, that's just kind of how it turned out and how the cookie crumbles. We'll keep on covering world news well into the future. Once the war in Ukraine ends, though, we're probably going to really roll back our streaming schedule to be several streams a week instead of every day but Monday. And another thing that we're probably going to do is that we're probably going to start leaning heavily, instead of doing daily short war summaries, we're probably just going to start doing less frequent but much higher quality and much more well-researched documentary videos, like we're already starting to work on right now. And that largely would be the kind of way the channel would shift. So that way it can continue to survive and hopefully be as successful as it is now, and ensure that y'all continue to get your news here from this source. Because it seems to me like a lot of y'all really have made it clear it really isn't just about getting Ukraine war news from here. It's really about just getting any news of what's going on anywhere in the world at this point, but from this channel, because we do a good job at delivering it and telling what's going on. So with that, I hope that addresses that.
Yeah, but
well.
that's honestly one thing I've seen people say quite a lot. Our channel legends know that we've already said this, so we're going to keep the channel going regardless. But some people think, oh, once the Ukraine war is over, like they're finished. Just like, no, not at all, actually. It's a news channel at this point. So we're covering world news. We've been doing that, like the Enforcer said, for ages. And now with the new videos, the documentaries coming out, that's just a brand new thing that we're hoping will take off pretty fast. So between all those different things, like, it's still going to go like as the same as it's always been, just different styles of news. But the channel's staying around. It's not going anywhere. So I'm sure the Hot Dog Man would love to hear that. But anyways, jumping into our next one, this one goes to Jigglesworth, who's also longtime channel legend and puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Jigglesworth, for that support. They said, whatever happened to circus trains and LLT, LSA?
The short story on that's actually a very quick one to explain. The short story is that entertainment improved in America a great deal, especially in the United States. And circuses were on the way out really by the time of the 1950s. Even then, circuses were starting to die off. And as they did, the amount of money that these circuses had to play around with was shrinking a good deal. So they really started to remove themselves from circus trains and began to move to other kinds of cheaper things. Crazily enough, circus ships actually took off for a bit, especially along the coastlines. And then circus trucks, 18-wheeler stuff like that, will largely carry folks around from place to place. But once the circuses died, because people just got tired of going to them, that's really when the circus trains died. The circus trains just kind of died with circuses altogether. I think the last circus to have that was the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, which it's still open. Hold up, is it still open?
Barnum and Bailey's?
So Barnum and Bailey's actually, wait, hang on. The original one died, but then they brought it back, apparently in 2023, with its first show in Bossier City in Louisiana.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I thought it had gone away because I think we'd gone to one of the last ones they ever had, I think, way back in the day.
Yeah, that's interesting. So apparently also, according to what I'm hearing on Wikipedia, in the new one, they don't have clowns or a ringmaster, so what the hell's the circus now? Like, that's like the whole circus is like the clowns, it's like that's like that's like the glue of the circus, so it's like if you don't have clowns, what kind of a circus is this? This is like
What's
more
that?
of like a traveling menagerie.
Someone just said, no, Barnum and Bailey's still around, but now they're just called news reporters.
Oh!
It's honestly true, though. The whole world's turned into a circus at this point. You don't need the ringmaster anymore. The world leaders will take care of that one.
Man, like, look at this, man. You can't, like, look, that right there up at the top, that's Tucker Carlson, and down here you got Wolf Blitzer. You got the whole gang. They're right here.
Look at that. You call them the fun makers, too. They're making a lot of fun out here.
Fun makers, man. I'm telling, they don't look fun to me, man. Clowns back in the day would beat your ass. Like clowns were violent historically, man. Did you know that?
I'd imagine they probably were violent. If I was having to put on the nose and the makeup, I'd be violent too.
Man, clowns back in the day had to set up the big top tents, so they were like swole. Like they were like there was a time, man. Like I forgot when. I think it was in Halifax, Canada, that the clowns got in the fight with the firefighters, and they were like beating each other's asses, like near a bar. Like it turned into a brawl. Like the whole fire department and the whole circus got involved in this giant fight. It was crazy. Like I actually watched a video on it, but. Anyways, let me skip forward because I can actually show you all the circus train. Here it is being hauled by CSX, but you can see all the passenger cars that carry, the workers, I guess you can call them, and then everything else behind them. And you can also see some of the cars right here as well. Honestly, it's kind of jank that they just carry animals around in cages on flat cars. That had to have been loud and, pretty, stressing for the animals. But, also the treatment of animals most of the time in the circus historically was pretty bad. Nowadays, it's improved a good bit, but... That's kind of why the circus trains died, is because the circuses themselves ended up dying off. The Ringling Brothers Circus, I think, was, from 2003 to 2015, the circus also operated a truck-based tour because it was cheaper to do that than going by train at that point. But anyways, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you once again for support. Great question, though. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and jumping into our next super chat, this one goes to Kachulian343, who puts in a 5, and thank you very much for the support. They said, the West Bank is a huge problem as long as it keeps Hamas from reconsolidating power, then I won't be picky. I think this is disgusting lesser evil.
And I thank you for the support. I'm really not going to weigh in on this Gaza Strip West Bank thing. I think I said my piece earlier, but I really don't want to get into that one because that one seems like it's going to get really, really political really fast. Like it already is becoming political just with the news coming out a few hours ago. Some are going to refrain from comment, but I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 5. And he said, the last time millions of people were relocated, it was World War II. And I think more details of this particular part is needed.
Oh, no, that's not the last time that people were relocated. No, there were so many times afterwards, it's crazy. The Soviet Union relocated millions of people at the end of World War II. A lot of Germans from East Prussia had to move into East Germany. A load of Germans had to move from this area of Western Poland, which historically was always Germany, into East Germany. They also moved a lot of Polish people from Western Ukraine into Poland. I mean, there was a load of mass relocations that happened after the war. In fact, Greece and Turkey probably conducted the largest one since World War II, with, I believe, 2 million Turks and 2 million Greeks being forcefully relocated by both governments and then sent to the other countries. So Greece removed, I think it was 1.5 million Turks from Greece and forcibly deported them back to Turkey. And simultaneously, Turkey took, I believe, 1.5 to 2 million Greeks and forcefully evicted them and relocated them back to Greece. And they both did that as an agreed thing, which was the craziest part about it. So there's a load of abandoned towns all over the Turkish coast and the Aegean Sea, as well as in Greece, that used to be filled with Greeks and Turks, but now there's no one living there at all on either side. They're also, let me see here. Let me think of a couple of other mass relocations that happened after World War II. Yikes. Let's see. Well, North and South Korea was a pretty good example, but that's kind of just a natural one, of a war that naturally occurred. And, yikes. Let me think. Oh, there's loads of them in Africa. Can't even name all of them. But generally that's because of warlords and all that kind of stuff. Not really like a government sanctioned thing. It just kind of naturally happens. It's more like a migration than anything. But yeah, there's been loads since World War II. A lot of people like to say that World War II and the Holocaust was the only one, but the sad truth is that forced relocations are actually very, very common throughout history. And so, to really say, oh, look at that, look at this, it's like literally Hitler. In this one instance, I'd have to say, not really the case. Because, hell, if that's literally Hitler, I'd say the Trail of Tears under Andrew Jackson had to have counted. Because, we took every single Native American tribe that was not in Florida. We'd end up going to war with them right at that time to try and force them out. Got forced marched all the way through the South and out to Oklahoma. So, it's like, if everyone's done that, and like quite literally almost every country on Earth has done a forced relocation at some point, it's like, it's bad. Yes, I would say it's bad, but at the same time, it's not, it's not like a perfect allegory to being Hitler. I hope I'm trying to make that a little clear. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robot, who puts in a 5 and says, this is one of the best geopolitical moves of the last 100 years if it keeps China from circumventing the Suez Canal. Absolutely genius.
And I thank you for the support, and hopefully we'll see that it was a good move. I always like to hope that the presidents of the United States that we have make smart moves and good decisions, so hopefully this will turn out to be a fairly good one. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 5 and says, don't look into Helios Lacer with remaining eye.
Oh yeah, like I usually don't. Like I try and avoid that. But thank you so much for the advice and thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I have a feeling if you looked at that laser, it'd probably burn right through your face. I have a feeling it's that powerful. It's really a doozy. But anyways, jumping into our next one, this one goes to Quantum Fighter, who puts in a 5 and says, some kroners. Hey, Quona. It's a Quona. But they said some kroners for your amazing work. For Alabamans. No, seriously, LLT, LSA, and best channel on YouTube. And I'm up at 4 every night to catch the show.
And thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And thank you so much for being a Norwegian viewer, throwing in those Norwegian kronas. And thank you so much for enjoying our work, even if we're from Alabama. A lot of people have such a view of Alabama, a stigma of a sort. And it's not a bad place. Well, it's not the best of places, being entirely honest, but it's not a bad place at all. The folks around here are nice, except for Birmingham. I'll give it that. There are nice people in Birmingham, but I'd say that they're in the minority compared to the mean people in Birmingham. And then everything that is all right in the city is just like, it's around 280. So, and also 280 is like the most dangerous highway in America at this point. It's making like, it's viral at this point, how dangerous Highway 280 is. So, yeah, that's something for you, to know right there, a little tidbit for you. But anyways, thank you once again for support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Dustin Mayo, who puts in a 5. He says, did you try to fix the fan the Russian way? Beat on it until it works. American parts, Russian parts, all made in Taiwan.
Actually, we tried the Alabamian way, which Matthew just started tapping around on it, and then when he felt like it was the right time, he just started smacking it pretty hard with his palm, and it worked. It actually worked. The fan eventually stopped making the noise. Actually, honestly, it just over-revved itself back into being normal after that. I guess it just, I don't know what happened. It just went back to normal. It's not making any noise now, and it's still running. I'm checking it every once in a while. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Adam McLean, it is Alabamians. I can actually pull that up for you right here. Alabamians are residents of the state of Alabama. And
as Governor Ives is the chief Alabamian.
Some people call me Meemaw.
Some people call me too old.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie, she is. Like I'm just gonna yeah, I'm gonna break it to folks. Like I respect folks for being in those positions, but when you're too old, you're just too old. Like like I don't mean to like be like that, but at the same time, politics as a whole is a very tedious thing, requires a lot of mental focus, and the older you get, I mean, it's just a reality of life. Once you get past your late 60s, your mental faculties naturally, like everyone's, will decline. So, having someone that old being in a governor's position or in the position of the president or a congress member, a senator or state legislator or anything like that, it's just they're getting too old for those kinds of positions.
Wait a minute, Roy, are you seeing this? It says region's routing number. It has like a bank routing number. Look on the profile, bro. Look, it's at the bottom. Look at that.
Wait, where?
It says at the bottom. Look,
Dude,
it says
what?
region's routing number, bro. It's a bank routing number.
Why the hell is that on the Alabama fact sheet? Who cares?
What the hell? Also, why's the bank routing number on there?
Well, if y'all ever want to
What the hell's
send,
going on?
if y'all ever want to send money to the state of Alabama through regions, I guess you got the routing number now. I don't know, like what the hell?
I've never seen that on Google ever. What the hell? It seems like a privacy issue or something.
Also, I don't remember this bird being called the northern flicker. I remember it being called like a yellowhammer or something like that.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I'm trying to get over the routing number, man. You moving on to a bird. I'm trying to get over the fact that the bank was on there.
Oh, look, yeah, it is a yellowhammer. Anyways, yeah, I don't know why the hell that was there, like, at all. Wait, hang on. Okay, well, that's actually decent. And then the capital, is Montgomery. Good luck getting to the governor's mansion alive, folks. but nevertheless, and dude, I just can't believe that that's actually there. And then it has a link to regions.com. Like, that is wild. That is wild, dude.
Next thing you know, they'll be having the region's account number on here next. Like the next thing you know.
No, next thing you know, man, there will be a voice message recorded by the governor, and they'll be saying, "We also accept debit and credit as well," or something like that. It's like, "We'll build you a new prison if you give us some money." Like,
donate to the new prison fund, good sir. Make sure the prisons are funded well.
Thank you to our platinum subscribers of Sweet Home Alabama. There's something like that. Like, oh my lord, I cannot. Wait a minute, did they do this for any other state? Do they do this for New Yorkers? Like, do they have the region's routing number for them? New York. Let me just type that in.
They have a formula on New Yorkers. Look at that. There's a formula. It says 7 plus 7 times S by 10 plus 3/4 inches.
200 millimeters by 273 millimeters.
Man, what is that? That's the size of a New Yorker's ego after living there for like 5 years. It starts getting smaller and smaller as more people get rude with you.
Oh man, and then you're living in a closet. Like you have to flip down the bed on top of the toilet. It costs about $1 million a year. But let's see here. Yeah, they don't have the bank for these folks. I guess they're just too wealthy for that. They're not going to be brought down by having a bank routing number brought onto their info page. Also, what is up with these zip codes?
100XX, 104XX. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. This is just the city of New York. We need New York State. That's what we need. Do they have a bank routing number? Those bastards, they don't. Like, it's like they're going to do Alabama dirty, but they're not going to do New York dirty. Like, come on. Like you could give money to the mayor of New York. Oh, well, you might not want to do that. Like, he's already bought off by the Turks. But you could give money if you wanted to, but they don't even give you the option. Like that's crazy right there. But also their bird is the eastern bluebird. Oh, that's cute.
I like that bird. That's a nice bird.
Dude, look at that thing. That thing's all like pudgy right there. Look at that. That's cute. Makes you want to like
That's
pet
a
it.
soft bird.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Man, honestly, Alabama's bird wasn't that bad. It's like it's like just kind of bland looking, like, but it's not bad. Look at that thing.
Yeah, I don't understand Alabama. They picked the bland bird, the bland flower, and also the bland like cart tags too.
You know what? It's made me curious. What is the bird of Florida? The state of Florida. What's the bird? The northern mockingbird. Well, this is even more bland. Look at that. Dude, those are everywhere.
Yeah, that's really bland,
Those are
honestly.
everywhere. That's like the most common bird you could pick. Wait a minute, hang on. Whoa, hang on. Now we need to find Mississippi's bird. It's just going to be a bird with like no feathers, and it's going to be like I don't have enough money to buy the feathers. So we're gonna okay, that's fair. But let's see, it's the northern mockingbird again, or the wood duck. Oh, dude,
I like the wood duck.
the wood duck is sick. Look at this thing. That thing looks so smug.
Dang, man, that thing's got a freaking mullet.
That's it, dude. It's Theo Vaughn. Like he's moved to Mississippi. No way, dude. Also, dude, these are the coolest ducks. Like I love the feathers and the patterns on the male. Like the female is pretty cool, but the male's got the striking pattern right there. Man, dude, these are actually sick. Well, look at that one.
Dang, these are crazy birds. It's hard to believe. Wait a minute, that says Mandarin duck. It's from East Asia,
Why is
so that's
that
not
Beijing?
Mississippi. I was about to say that's a little bit too exotic of a bird to be in Mississippi.
Dude, this is the coolest duck. This is my favorite duck now. Like the wood duck is going to be my favorite from here on.
I like the duck's colors and stuff, but that duck looks like it's seen like war horrors or something like that with like the look in its eyes.
It
I
just-
think thing's traumatized.
Dude, this thing just got done flying over Jackson, Mississippi. Like it's traumatized.
I'm flying south for the winter and forever. It's just I'm leaving.
No, man, this thing just flew over Jackson. It's flying straight to the Mississippi to dive in and never resurface. It's like it's just I've had enough. Like man.
That thing is fried.
Dude, this thing goes back to its like mating partner, and the mating partner's like, "Oh, what were you up to today?" And it's like, "Have you seen the water treatment plants in Jackson? Like they're overflowing with shit. Like I'm leaving this place. Like what's the bird now, dude? I'm so interested in the birds because we're finding so many cool birds now. What is the? You kidding me? Is everyone in the South just a northern
Just a
mockingbird?
mockingbird.
Everyone's like, you know what? Just northern mockingbird. Like, let's go to Louisiana. Let's go see. There's got to be the pelican. Yeah, it's the pelican. Honestly, man, pelicans are kind of yeah.
Those things are creepy looking a little bit. Some of them. It depends on which pelican you're coming across.
You know what they look like? They look like evolved pterodactyls. That's what they remind me of.
It's like a coastal vulture.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good way of putting it. Now, is the Tennessee going to be the northern mockingbird or not? It's going to be the northern mockingbird, isn't it? Oh my god. Like it's literally the wait, hang on. They got the bobwhite. These things are cool.
Oh, look at that thing, man. That thing is like fat.
Man, you know these are the ones that go like they go like oh bobwhite, like the little whistle that they do.
Oh yeah. That's why they call them that.
Yeah, dude, like look at this one though. This one's like, huh.
That's like that gecko thing on the Jurassic Park to spit in Newman's eye.
Yeah, dude. It's like those bearded dragons, the ones that flip out the like skin on the side of their head. That's actually pretty cool. Also, I like the little chicks that they have. They're very cute. Let's see here. Bobwhite. Let me type in northern bobwhite chicks, and maybe we can find those. Yeah, look at them.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Little
Look at that
cute
little
things.
baby bird.
Little cute things. They are very, very cute looking. I mean, like, I like bobwhites. They're just neat. But anyways, we're starting to run overtime here, and I'm starting to get you all probably bored with looking at all these birds. So, anyways, we now learned the wood duck is probably the coolest looking duck in the country. So, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Global Perspective, who puts in a 5 and says, "No posting good photos of Putin for thumbnails, please." You think those are good? I like that. Honestly, here's the way I do it with my thumbnails. We usually put a picture of Putin there because, to be perfectly honest and straight up, that gets more people to click. And that's the objective, obviously, of running a YouTube channel is get people to basically get on the video. That's one part of it. I know some people are going to be like, well, that's just clickbaiting. You're admitting to clickbait. Listen, if you don't have people watching your video, you don't have a channel. So, I mean, it's not clickbaiting. Putin is a part of the conflict, and he gets put on the thumbnail. We also sometimes put Zelensky on there. We put other people, depending on what the topic is. But mainly, whoever's the most recognizable is who goes on the thumbnail, just for click-through reasons. But honestly, I would say none of the photos are really that good of Putin, to be honest with you. That's just me, though. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I think the pictures of Putin aren't really that great. We usually get the ones where he looks like he's angry or something or feral. But I do thank you for the support. But once again, running a YouTube channel, like I got to be honest with you, I'm gonna have to drop like the corporate speak and just be honest with y'all. we got to run a business here. And whatever is going to be getting the most clicks is really what works. So you have to kind of do that. Like, if you don't do that, you end up being like the hot dog man, and you pretend like you're, doing well, and you're like almost broke. Like, we have bills to pay and stuff. So we've got to make sure that folks are here watching, or else we don't have a living and we're not able to do this at all. So, that's kind of the truth. Also, before we move on to the next one, Matthew, I got 2 more requests I'm going to look at. Walter A. Lakota said, look at the bird of Hawaii. The bird of Hawaii is the nene, which is this thing. It looks like a Canadian goose, but different.
Interesting. I kind of like it, and I kind of don't. I'd say it's a weird bird.
It's like a zebra bird, almost, with that neck.
Yeah, I wonder if these are as aggressive as these other goose.
Oh, those little Canadian geese, man, I can't stand them. But also, I got asked to look at the shoebill stork, which is prehistoric looking.
Yeah, that thing is scary as hell. Look at that.
Man, these things are terrifying the way they live.
Damn.
If they're young or too weak, they kill them.
Man, these things are horrifying. Go look at that
Look
one
at the
down
tooth.
there.
Look at the tooth.
Oh
at
man,
the front of the
look
beak.
at that one down there standing up in the bottom left corner over there. Damn, man, that thing's freaking scary as hell. That's like out of a nightmare or something. Look at that.
These things are native.
Man.
These things are native, I believe, to Central Africa, and they are terrifying.
That's like a demonic bird right there. That thing's creepy.
This is the look. It's got a whole page for the angry ones. Man, oh
damn,
dude, these things are terrifying. Legitimately, I actually do not like them. But that's why I wanted to show them to y'all, because they're neat, but not for good reasons to me. Like, they're scary.
Dang, man, if you ran across one of those things, I would be horrified if I ran across one of those. I would have to be like, self-defense. Oh, that kind of looks
that
nice.
One
That
looks
one right
cute.
there. He looks friendly, that one, but that's unusual though. It's kind of like Birmingham people. There's one friendly one in the bunch, but the rest looks sketchy.
Man, this one looks like he's going to go, hello, and this one, I'm going to kill you in your sleep. Like, it's like 2 totally different birds in one go. I just don't like the tooth on their beak. Like, they have this giant like tooth protrusion at the front of their beak. It's supposed to be used as a tooth, like to rip through flesh, because these things eat meat. They're carnivores.
Go back to the cute one for a minute. Let's see the cute one again. Yeah, that's like I don't that one there. You can tell that one's a good soul. That one right there. It's out of the bunch of like bad birds that look like freaking killers and stuff like that. You have the one nice one here.
Man, this one's an accountant. It just works a 9 to 5. Has a good life. Like, this one in prison for 20 years for murder. like 2 totally
really.
Like, it's just ugh.
Jeez, man, these are rough.
Dude, this one looks like it's showing up and going, probably wants a cracker. Something like that. It's like it's gonna kill you if you don't give it something to eat. Like, oh man. Oh, these things are terrible. I just don't like them. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next one here goes to Marc-Andre Burnett, who puts in a 2 as well and does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Mark, for that support and also helping to keep us running once again, and we appreciate you very much. Longtime channel legend, by the way. And we also have a 2 from CW, and thank you, CW, as well for the support. He said, what rail yards in the intro? Because I worked at CSX in Avon, Indiana.
That's a great question. That's actually stock footage that I have a license to use. Unfortunately, I don't believe they listed what rail yard that was. I wanted to show more rail yards. I really wanted to get a local one here to Birmingham, like Norris, but there was no stock footage for that. So I had to go with a generic one. But I wish I could tell you. I think the rail yard that was in question, though, it was a Union Pacific rail yard, because I remember seeing a load of Union Pacific locomotives just on the sidings in that one clip. But you might be talking about another one clip of the clips, because I actually showed a lot of trains. Y'all know I love trains. I think trains are a real symbol of the country as well, because they're, what built the nation. So I included a decent amount of trains in that intro. But still really cool to hear that you worked near Avon Yard. Let's go look at Avon Yard. We don't have time. We're running overtime here, but for trains, we make the time. Avon Yard. We'll just type in Avon Yard. I'm sure you'll find it. CSX Avon Yard. That's all the way up there in Indianapolis. Holy moly, that's one hell of a yard. Look at that. Jeez. That's a big one. That's not small by any means. And look at that. Look at that right there. Look at that. The industry of America at work. It's always incredible. It's always incredible. And look, Canadian National. That's pretty cool. Probably the most mid livery in America, but it's still pretty neat that they're there. But yeah, pretty cool to hear. But still, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, that is actually our last super chat. So huge thanks to everybody once again for supporting the channel tonight and helping to keep the channel running, because we sincerely do appreciate it. And of course, we need that support to keep the channel running. So thank you very much. And also with that, folks, we are now moving on to our live chat questions. It's time to get some live chats and also the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight we had the entire roster yet again. And it was Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, David Millsaps, Royal Fluffiness, Arabelle Garbo, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. And they said the Morse code today reads, Putin is going cry, because now he's really getting bullied by the U.S. and LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct, dead on the nail, because y'all continue to get that right time and time again, even 1,077 days into the wire. And so with that, congratulations to y'all once again. And we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Activista, who says, any thoughts on what the succession plan is for RF, the Russian Federation, and who takes the car keys from Grandpa and things?
I would have to be honest with you. I've always had the same answer to this, and it's not really a great one, because it's not like clear. It's going to be a no-name nobody. That's just always how it's worked. Someone climbs up through the ranks, they're completely unseen, completely unnoticed, and they take the reins out of the blue. Khrushchev was one of those, Stalin was one of those, Lenin was one of those. Hell, really anyone in modern Russian history since the Soviet Union has almost always been someone who just slowly wormed their way through the shadows and up to the top. Brezhnev was one. Gorbachev, I think, was one. Because all of those big guys that you would think would take that spot, they're targets, and everyone's already trying to rip them down. So it's going to be that little guy who rips everyone else down that makes it to the top. So we probably won't even know who it is right now. It'll be a guy who pretty much just comes up out of nowhere on in the future. And so with that, I hope that answers that somewhat well. Not really a great answer, because it doesn't say exactly who, but we'll see one day. It's just that I can guarantee you it's probably going to be no one that you would know by name right now. And so with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Marvelous Matt, who says, do you think Ukraine missed an opportunity to take out those Sparta ships that Russia had circling around Tartus port?
Probably not. They don't probably have the range to reach into the Mediterranean like that and destroy ships out there. So I would generally say they probably didn't miss the opportunity, because they probably don't have the ability to actually conduct an attack like that on those ships at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person who's running the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be none other than Purple Gerbil, who says, do you think with the restrictions lifted, will the Ukrainians attack the fleet in St. Petersburg?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think any U.S. weaponry we provided has the range. Let me measure. Yeah, it wouldn't have the range. The farthest range thing that we've given to them has a 350-mile range. They could hit Moscow, actually, and they could hit well beyond it. But St. Petersburg, sadly, with American weaponry, would be out of reach. They could try it with their own drones. It's just that with American weaponry, it really never will be a target, because I don't think we provided anything that gets close to having that kind of range, and probably never will. But with that, still a great question. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. And I got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for each and every single one of y'all every single day. I got to thank you all so much once again for watching tonight, and if you have enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe, make sure to like and comment. We are just about 40 subscribers away from 338,000 subs, and we would love for one of y'all to be the 338,000th subscriber. Thank you all so much once again for watching. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for another fantastic stream tonight. And be sure to join us again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next night of War News streaming. And I'm sure with the way the news is going these days, it's probably going to be another crazy day tomorrow. And if it is, you'll be hearing from the Enforcer midday on the Short War video, of course, sometime midday. But with that, folks, thank you all once again for watching. And all 64,000 people that joined us at this point in the stream, huge shout out to all and every single one of you. And with that, we will see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.
Every day Return to